Let me see. Of course, it doesn't have. Okay, so the topic of today's webinar is ultimate blueprint, perfect aperture, shutter speed, ISO, and sharpness. Right? Is seems to be a pretty simple topic. So of course, I'm going to talk not only the simple stuff, but I also touch on some more advanced stuff like photo contest, right? Which is something that I think is very worthwhile for you guys to enter, not for the name and recognition, but just for if you have a chance to go to some museum and you see our next generations, right? A lot of them, if you know, in 1 year I was in Alaska and I see that at a bear sighting place, I see kids just playing with their iPads instead of watching the bears. So this is very critical for us to really teach our next generation the beauty of nature, and we photographers have this opportunity. So wow, this is a special effect, right? Okay, so today's agenda. Sorry about that. Let me okay, just close this thing and move on to this thing. Okay, so today's agenda first is how to effortlessly obtain perfect exposure every time once you master a blueprint that I'm going to teach you, right? And of course, you guys come here because of that. And and we are going to also talk about something extra, which if you see the details in the webinar, I'll also talk about the most efficient AF techniques to nail tag sharp photos for moving subjects. And this is actually by popular demand. After I mentioned about this webinar about metering, I received some emails from some of the readers, and they asked me, like can you also talk about AF techniques? They all seem to have some difficulties to get text sharp photos. So I'm going to share with you my experience on that. And then I'm also gonna, after we touch on this technical stuff, right, I'm gonna tell you how to see and choose award winners from the thousands of photos you took and how to optimize the file. And this is very important because if you go to any Barnes & Noble bookstore and those, which was the place that I loved to go before, grab a latte and then grab any of the photography books and magazines, right? They all teach you the basics, right? The metering, right? Which digital camera to choose, what is the ISO and all these things. And then they talk about animal species, and then they mention to you some of their wildlife stories, right? But the reality right now is that most of us, right, have a digital camera, right? No matter if it's a cell phone or a fancy DSLR, or a lot of you have switched to mirrorless, right? But the thing is, we all nowadays it's very easy to travel to, right? You guys go to Alaska, go to Africa, right? And then you come back from Yellowstone, for example. You got tens of thousands of photos, right? And a lot of some of you actually would never look at the photos. No, you just go back to work, go on with your life. But some of you are more hardworking, and you would go to Lightroom, for example, and then you will look through your photos, right? And then you throw away all these photos that are completely blurred and out of focus, right? And then you started to choose your favorite photos, right? But a lot of the time, you still it still got narrowed down to a few hundred photos that have like 1 star or 2 stars, right? And because we all have this bias, right? It's like when you cook, you always feel that it is tastier than, actually I don't feel that, but you know what I mean, right? We all have this emotional attachment to our photos, right? So we got offended, right? Like especially when I first started, when I talked to my friends, like, hey, look at these photos that I took, right? When I took the photo, I was really, really happy, like this is so good, right? And then I saw my friends have no reaction, and I started to hate them, right? And this is the typical reason because of this bias. And I really want to, and this is actually a very critical step, is that instead of letting all these photos to sit, right? I mean, I have friends who have photos that they never processed until a new camera came, and then they said, oh, I got to go back to the same place to photograph the same stuff because right now my camera can shoot double the pixel size, right? And then it just repeats and repeats, and then they never look at the photos. But just think about how important some of the photos can, especially nowadays, you know, a lot of crap is going on, right? So anyways, so after each trip, we all come back with tens of thousands of photos, and we end up liking hundreds of them. And I'm going to teach you how to pick. And I'm also going to teach you one bonus technique that I used in the field to instantly get some photos that are memorable, and you guys will love it. So you guys are all okay, right? So what I need from you, so I do have some requests from you guys, right? So you know, I go to take photos a lot. This is my obsession, and I spend years to try to master my skill, right? But and every time when I try to show you something, especially when I tell my some of my friends, right? Hey, I just have this new technique and method and stuff, and then I'll tell them, but you know, when things are coming like a free webinar, most people will just listen and they never do it. So I just have this little request. I said, I want to say that if I show you how to obtain the perfect exposure with the best aperture, shutter speed, ISO, and sharpness, will you promise me to actually try it? Just like if you are going out this weekend, right? If you are really happy with your own metering steps, but if there is just some unimportant photos or some non-critical shots, please just give it a try on my method and see how it goes. And yeah, if you can do it, yes, okay, definitely use it. Yeah, if you can promise me that, please type yes in the chat box and let's get it started, because I really want you guys to try it. And then if it works, let me know later. If it doesn't work, let me know too, and then I can talk to you and really go dig deep into what is really going on. So yes, okay, all right, okay, I'm so happy that you guys are promising me. So okay, so really let's begin. So who am I? You know, my name is so I went to keep a lawyer. All my parents ever wanted was for me to become a wildlife photographer. Anyways, I don't know if you guys get it, but so you know how difficult it is really for me to work on this hobby, because it's just shocking for my parents when I say that I'm not gonna be staying home. I'm gonna get on a small plane and go to this place that have no showers, and I'll be face to face with grizzly bears, right? Anyway, so a little bit more about me is, so I was very honored to win the wildlife category in this year's Nature's Best Photography Winder Smith Rice International. I went to the award ceremony back in November, and this is a photo where it was displayed as I think it's a 5 feet, or I don't know, it's probably not a 6 feet tall photo. And the reason I mentioned about it is because I want to let you know that whenever we take a photo, we gotta bear in mind that our photos may actually end up in one of these places. And if you are not careful when you are in the field to take a photo, sometimes even if the photo is so emotional, so perfect, but if there is something that you didn't pay attention to, just tiny little bit of stuff about the exposure or the sharpness or some of those parameters, you lose this opportunity, which I think it actually happened to me one time. I doubt that this may be the reason, but probably one of the reasons is because I messed up some of the cropping and the sharpening and all. And the photo, when it was printed, it was soft and it was just embarrassing, basically. It's like, it's better that it didn't win the award. I don't know. But then when you win the award, and then when you didn't have enough pixels or you didn't have enough sharpness and all, it's just very painful. So I want to show you this photo here. And some of you also know that a few years ago, I also won the grand prize with this bear photo, and we're very fortunate that they actually picked the photo to be displayed at the entrance of the museum. So that was quite shocking, and I got to be standing on a podium there to give a little bit of talk. So it was the highlight of my life, really. And I have had some publications in Nature's Best, Wild Planet, Namper, and some other magazines. I have been featured in some places and some newspaper and some medium. And this I want to share with you because this is also another highlight of me is Stephen Freely. This is the foreword he wrote for my solo exhibit in HKUST Hong Kong 1 year. I was very honored to have him here and to write this. And he said, talk about my photography. He said, someone who has viewed millions of photographs over my publishing career. I was immediately drawn to Lee's work, now published around the world in books, magazines, and exhibitions. His images reflect a very deep respect for nature and the wildlife it nurtures. These photographs tell stories, rekindling our love for the natural world and reminding us to protect it. So it's a very flattering description, but this is also something that is what I focus on. I'm gonna tell you more today, which is how to really tell a story. So that people will pay more attention to the wildlife here. But anyway, so in addition to being a wildlife photographer, some people know that about 2 years ago, I had a bad injury in my back. I had a herniated disc in my lower back and also a bulging disc back to back. So it was so bad that for 3 months, I couldn't walk. And basically, for example, if I need to go to a Trader Joe's, I would drive to the parking lot and I get up and then I walk 1 step and it would be like a knife pinching into my hip. It was so painful that tears would come down and I would sit back into my car and drive back home and I couldn't get any grocery. And that's how bad it was. And I almost thought about giving up photography actually. And indeed, the photograph of that fox that won the wildlife category, I had to walk maybe like half a mile to get to that spot. And that was in the peak of my pain in my back. So, oh God, I was just rolling on the ground. You can imagine all kind of poses to get to that spot. And I had tears all over. So it was just, so it means a lot to me about the recovery and all. And anyway, so because of that injury, I was stuck at home for a long time. And I decided that since I couldn't go out to take photos, I may as well just summarize what I have learned over the years and started to teach. And so I become a photographer teacher. And with some of the classes that I offered, I made a lot of great friends through this teaching, and a lot of them become my lifelong friends. And including this one, he's not a bad month so far. 3 images made it to the finals of an international award and Nature's Best, and 2 images made to the final photographer of the year. Lots of accolades. And he said, "Thank you, Tim Man. You sure did leave a dent on my work." So I'm just very happy that this becomes another life hobby for me, which is teaching. But anyways, so this is some about me, and let's go on to the key things, right? So metering, exposure, right? We all like who really likes this? It's just something that is always annoying. It's very complicated, right? All these ISO, TV, AV, people will tell you, the professionals will tell you always use manual, right? If you join one of their workshops and all. And then some people will say, always use AV. I always use aperture priority. Don't ever use manual. You don't pay thousands of dollars for a camera to use manual, right? Something like that. So we are all confused. And no matter which method we use, I bet you still get overexposed shots, and it is very inconsistent. And sometimes the images even look soft when it's underexposed and all, and then you just got all confused. Like, what is sharpness? What is exposure? And all kind of things. And you decided not to think about it. You just kind of say, okay, I'm going to just use AV, whatever. And then if the photos may sometimes be dark, sometimes be bright, but I don't even want to think about it. And indeed, I talk to a lot of my friends, and that's their decision. They don't want to think about it. But this is all going to end today, right? So, so you might have a question though. It's like that you might have been to a lot of these tutorials, right? I mean, lots of good webinars and Namper and Creative Live and all these books. And this is the valid concern that why would I want to spend an hour and a half or 2 hours to listen to me, why would that be different, right? And I believe you can, because this should be very different from the others, because I didn't start as a professional wildlife photographer. I have a full-time job, and then I 9 to 5, and I only go weekends or weeknights to take photos. And I actually attended a lot of the photography workshops myself, and I paid tons and tons of money to learn from the masters, and I narrowed it down, talked to a lot of my good friends to get to something that actually works. So I'm going to show you how a unique approach that actually is not me, it's not mine really. I just talked to some of my friends, and one of the methods works, and it works really well. So I want to share with you, and it seems to work for different people from all different kind of backgrounds that you may not even know anything about wildlife photography, but it's gonna work. And so and then it's very simple too. So I'm very excited to share with you. But just like I've actually never thought about that too, but I wonder if you guys have thought about that. Is imagine if you no longer have to worry about exposure and sharpness. Like every time when a bird fly by, like a gray owl, and some of you love it, like me. If a owl fly towards you in a falling snow, for example, and the background was dark, and then the snow was white, and then there's some snow in front of the owl, and then it's flying towards you. You couldn't even nail the focus, and you might not get the perfect exposure, right? But imagine if you suddenly have this capability that every time when you see this, it's like your eyes, right? You see that, and then it is the perfect picture. What would you do? Just think about it. Then are you gonna have the time to compose the photo, think about how to get closer or how to get them more in the frame, and how do you change the perspective, and like maybe you move a little bit to the left and right so that the background looks nicer. You certainly have a lot more opportunities to create something unique, right? Instead of just struggling like everybody else, just fumbling with your cameras and all, right? Like if you have that capability, just try to imagine that, how good it is. And if you have that capability, what are you gonna do today? And maybe what are you gonna do this week or this month or this year? Or like, would you really like to make a difference? And that's really the image I want to show you, is that, right, you all see that UN report saying that 1 million species could go extinct. And it shows how hard it is to heal the planet. So there's a lot of these kind of things. And I truly believe that if we who own a camera, who can go out and we can maximize our creativity to get photos that move people, and then that can create a lot of changes. So just kind of like, this romantic notion that I want to share with you. So on this webinar, I'm going to tell you a detailed breakdown of the metering framework I used to nail exposure in any situation. That is crazy, right? That is very arrogant, yeah. And then I'm going to share with you an experience from a recent trip that has changed my approach dramatically, and I'll review to you later. And then I'm going to share with you a very simple AF tracking formula that is useful in all quick action. And you are most likely committing a mistake in metering, and is really killing you. And I need to tell you that, because in order for you to have a photo that is museum quality in printing, you need to make sure that you don't fall into that trap. And I'm going to also give you a detailed breakdown of how I won the grand prize of Nature's Best photography using the techniques that I'm going to tell you. Like everything that I know, I use onto that photo, and that's how it wins. So it's gonna be exciting, right? And I'm also going to share with you a secret golden rule that I always use, and you get a good laugh from that. And I'm going to also tell you how one shot I took. I also use this blueprint that I'm going to tell you, and it won me an award. And you guys, right? If you go to as close as to Yellowstone or to Alaska, we all have to spend quite a lot of money, right? The flight may probably be like $300, $400. If you fly to Jackson, it's gonna be more expensive. And then you rent a car, you get a hotel room, and then and sometimes you rent a lens or two, and it adds up. And sometimes like a cheap like a low price trip for a week probably will cost you maybe $2,000, right? And if you go to Alaska or even Africa and those places, India, right? God, I just spent so much money recently. So, but then, sometimes you don't really need to spend that much money. If you have this kind of blueprint, you can see opportunities. And if you strike using these opportunities, you can still win awards without spending all this money. That's what I want to tell you. And I'm going to share with you a reverse expert secret. God, it sounds like those marketing scheme, right? Sorry about that. A reverse expert secret to create impactful photos very easily. And I'll explain why as well. So, of course, get some papers, try to jot some notes. And since I'm going to put a lot of effort to condense everything into an hour. So if you have a cell phone, just put it away for a little bit. And at the end, I'm also gonna give you a PDF of something I talk about in this webinar on metering. So stay tuned until the end. So a brief roadmap for today, right? So it's very simple actually for today. First, I'm going to tell you how to select the best metering mode and parameters, like including shutter speed and those. And really, this is all we need for a camera control, right? And then I'm going to share with you my most efficient way to do AF tracking to create tech-sharp photos, right? You all like tech-sharp photos, right? Because I hate something that is a little bit off in the focus. And sometimes we can overexpose it and then resize it, and then the photo will still look nice, but I don't want to lie to myself, right? If you look at your photo at 200% and the eyes are not sharp, you fail, right? And as a wildlife photographer, you have to be honest, brutally honest with yourself. So, but then how do you create these tech-sharp photos? And that's, I'm gonna share with you a few tips that I use to improve and add more chance into getting this kind of photos. And I forgot number three. Number three is after you perfected the technical stuff, I want to show you a super technique to, God, I sound like a marketing guy too, right? A super technique to choose your photos for contest submission, and also a bonus trick, in the field, sorry for my spelling. So now, the ultimate metering blueprint. So when I first started photography, I thought, okay, we have Lightroom, right? And people say that if you have an underexposed photo, you just slide the bar to the right in exposure, right? And then everything is good. And indeed, when I had these amateur eyes, I thought, wow, this is magical. I just slide it and then it's brighter, right? And then when it's brighter, then I just slide down and then it becomes darker, and who cares about metering, right? And this is absolutely wrong, because this subtle difference in exposure can ruin your shots to have any chance to win any awards or get into any publication completely. You can just destroy it if your exposure is not correct. And I'll show you one painful example later. So, for example, if your metering is overexposed, meaning that you blow some of the highlights, meaning that the white, the brighter part of the image, some of those regions, you'll be completely white. So you lose the texture of those regions. So in those situations, even in Lightroom, even with recovery and all this kind of thing, and even if you have a really cool camera with a lot of dynamic range, sometimes it's still not gonna save that. And this is also one of the biggest laughable thing, that you can't just darken the white thing and then make it look like it didn't get overexposed, because the pros and the judge will see it immediately and know that you mess up the exposure, okay? So overexposure is painful. And underexposed exposure is not good either, because if your photo is underexposed, and most of the time, right, we talk a lot about opening the shadow. Any of you know what opening the shadow means here? It means that a lot of the time, especially when you take photos of animals, like furry animals, like bears and all, the camera doesn't see the same kind of dynamic range, meaning the bright and the dark, the whole shades, like 50 shades, is it? I'm just too focused on some other books, but like humans see a lot more than the camera. So people kept on trying to invent camera that has more dynamic range, and then there's this HDR method that trying to match the human eyes, right? Because the human eyes adjust, right? You look at the shadow, it brightens it automatically. So when we look at something, The shadow, when we focus on the shadow part, our eyes and our visual cortex automatically increase the exposure so that we see more details. But then the camera is pretty dumb. So what they get is if you expose the photo properly on the bright side, then the dark side would actually, the shadowy side would actually be much darker than you see. So what you do is you go to the Lightroom and then you go to the shadow bar, and then you slide the shadow to the right so that the darker part will be brightened. But the problem of that is that the darker part, actually based on this histogram and all this technical stuff, whatever, right? When you try to increase the brightness of the darker part, you also increase the noise. I think it's something that is a signal to noise and whatever. Even though I actually had a graduate degree on those, but I'm not gonna talk about the details there. So it's not good either. God, I spent so much time on just this slide. Okay, I gotta check on the time anyways. So this is not good too. So, and then if you don't master the technique, you keep getting inconsistent results. For example, if you were following like a bobcat or a coyote walking along the road, and then you use certain method, and then you go home, and all of a sudden, oh, this picture is overexposed, this is underexposed, and then it's almost like a lottery, and you never know when it's gonna be correct, and this is not good, right? And so when you have the best exposure, your photos should be able to be printed at 32-inch or above. And 32 inch is a very critical number because if you're planning to submit to Nature's Best Photography and some other prestigious photo awards, they will display your photo at this size. And if you win the category or if you win the grand prize, it will be displayed even bigger. So when the photo is being printed at such a big size, you have to have critical sharpness, and also your photos should have low noise, and the exposure is very critical that way, because if it is just a little bit underexposed, and then when you try to increase the exposure to see the details, the noise will be exaggerated, and when it's printed at 32 inches, got all messed up. And then even if your photos have a chance to win, they can't pick you, right? It's just that they have to pick an inferior photo that has better quality because they're gonna show it to the world, and then your photo is just too distracting. And distracting, according to my theory, even though if the story is good, when it's very distracting about the noise and all this and underexposed and all, people wouldn't be able to concentrate on the emotion you want to convey. So this is really the prerequisite of a good photo, is that you have to have the perfect quality. So and then if you have proper exposure, then your details in the shadow will be good, and then the photo will actually look sharper. So that's actually very critical, and it actually involves just very few steps. Anyway, so I want to show you an email I got after one of my good friends tried that method. He said, "Tin Man, I tried this for the first time today, shooting the great horn owlet. The owlet came down from the tree and walked on the ground. How nice, right?" And of course, I missed that opportunity to join him. And he said, "No time to think about settings. Just look at a few images and I'm very pleased with them. Perfect exposure. This is very useful setting that I learned from you." So you guys are excited, right? So this message actually have a very important point in that no time to think about settings. Just imagine if you're waiting, looking at a great horn owlet, right? Suddenly it came down from the tree and then it's walking towards you, right? You don't have time to like do spot metering, do manual, and do all these things, because by the time you just delay for 0.1 second, you may have missed the shot. So timing is really, really critical for wildlife photography. And I'm going to share with you my method, which is really to minimize it, minimize the timing. So by the time if you understand this method, you no longer be fearful for any kind of lighting condition like snow. I just received an email from one of you asking me about like, oh, if I have this backlit and morning light and this, how do I do? So if you try that, you probably will never be worried about snow backlit, dark and sky background, and then you save time to focus on catching the action, right? When the owlet is coming, right? You don't have time to focus on metering. You want to focus on his eyes, right? And catch the action, right? So, and then you, So by this, if you use this method, you create stunning quality images with no noise that can be displayed in camera. I can't keep repeating this, and you know, right? So speed is everything in wildlife photography, and I have to stress it before I even go into the method, because you guys have to know that, like for example, the time when you set up a tripod, it may take 1 second and you may have already missed 10 critical shots if you don't know how to maneuver your lens to get those shots first before you set up the tripod, like for example, something like that. So, and the key thing here is that, think about it. If you want to change the aperture in your camera, what do? You use your finger to dial it, right? And then if you want to change the shutter speed, what do? You also have, there's another dial, right? If you use some better cameras, right? There's 2 dials, right? And then you can just dial it, click it, and then you can change it. But if you want to change an ISO, what do you need to do? You have to press one button first, right? And hold on that button and then dial one of the dials that are supposed to be used for aperture and shutter speed, right? And that motion is deadly, in my opinion. It costs us our shots, and we should avoid using it. And this is really the key idea. So the question here is, what if the animal moves into a place from bright to shadow, and then suddenly you never know, right? Is the shadow really dark? Like, did it drop 1 or 2 stops of light, right? How do you do it, right? So full manual would not work, right? Because if the fox from the left suddenly walk to the middle side of it, and then walk to the backlit side of it, right? You just don't have time to use spot meter, which I'll explain later, to try to get the perfect exposure and do it. You actually have to have a method that is adjusting the exposure on the fly, even though it might not be perfect, but near perfect is better than catastrophic, right? That's the term that I try to say it, right? This is a quote. You guys should remember it, right? So an example. So I have a very good friend, a photographer that I really admire. His name is Patrick. Should I even say his name? Because it's not a very happy story. But anyways, his name is Patrick Andres, and I admire his photos from Alaska for many years. Endres is his last name. Very great photographer. So he told me that. So he was leading a tour to photograph the Northern Lights. So basically the tour is like they sleep in the daytime, and then the whole group will wake up at night, and then they will go out and then look for Northern Lights, and then they will shoot for a whole night, and then they will sleep the next day and then wait for the night, that kind of thing. Patrick Andres, Endres, and yeah, you love his photo. Oh my God, his photo inspired me so much, and he's a super nice guy too. So anyway, so he was leading this Northern Light tour in March, and usually in March in Alaska you don't see a lot of wildlife, so they just basically sleep in the daytime, and then they will do that. And let me ask you guys, who have shot Northern Lights or Milky Way before? So you know how to shoot it, right? You set up your tripod, you manual focus your lens to infinity, and then you set ISO to 3200 or 6400, and then you have a remote, right? Or like those mirror lockup or whatever crap that I don't really know how to do it. And then you set the timer, right? If the Northern Light is really strong, you may set it as like 5 seconds. And if it's not quite strong, or if you want to take Milky Way, you set it as 30 seconds, right? So at that night, he said the Northern Light was not very strong, so they were setting 30 seconds. Okay, so good. No, so now you know, right? So you set the timer, and then you photograph this, and this is actually a shot that I got from Alaska with Patrick. Actually, now that I think about it, he was right there. But it was not from that trip that this story happened. So that night they took a lot of Northern Light photos, and then the next morning, one of his clients said that he needed some grocery in town. So Patrick said, okay, let me drive you in town to get some grocery. Though that may be like a 30 minutes drive from their cabin, right? So it was daytime, and everywhere was snowy because it was still in February and March in Alaska. And as a wildlife photographer, right, you know, we never go out without a camera. So Patrick followed this very strictly, right? So he grabbed his camera, and then he started to drive, right? And then they were driving and driving, and suddenly Patrick just braked on the car and then just opened the window. And he said, I think I saw something. That's what I added to it. He said he saw something that is crazy. So he looked on the side of the window, and about probably 10, 15 feet from him at eye level, there is a tree, a pine tree with snow cover. And on one of the branch, eye level to him, there was a wolverine looking at him with snow on the snout of the wolverine. And he said, oh my freaking God, this is my dream ever species, right? He said, not even a wolverine, it's a wolverine in eye level, full frame in a pine tree covered with snow, right? So he grabbed the camera, very excited, and said, shit, I didn't bring long lens, but at least I have a 21 millimeter and this wolverine is so close, at least I can get some shots, right? And he grabbed the camera and pointed at the wolverine and clicked. And then he heard, deet, 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 deet. So that was the setting from his last night photographing the Northern Lights. And then he said, oh shit, this is the timer. So he tried to turn it off, and you guys have tried to turn off the timer. The camera would go crazy, and then he wouldn't let him off and let him turn it off and turn it on. And then after he fumbled a little bit and he looked up, the wolverine was gone. So sometimes you want to laugh when you are not the one to see the wolverine, right? So that story is telling, is giving, I hope that it gives you a good lesson that every time you go out, definitely bring your long lens and also check your setting. And so it shows you how important it is to have everything prepared and have the good speed to get ready for the shot. And I guess his life is more painful than not seeing the wolverine and miss the shot. Anyways, so a little bit about the exposure, right? Just some basic theory. Assume some of you are like completely new to this. Is that for me to understand what really is exposure is almost like there's a sink, right? That's blocked, right? Like the cup is covered, and you open the tap, and if you open it bigger, like turn it all the way on, then it takes less time to fill the sink, right? And if you kind of make it really, really small, the opening is really small, then it takes a lot longer to fill the whole sink, right? So that's really the exposure, right? So the opening of the tap is really just the aperture opening, right? If you open it more, then it takes less time to fill the light into the sink to get the proper exposure, right? And if you narrow it down like a f16, which means a very small aperture, then it takes a lot longer to fill it up. So there's this like Sunny 16 rule or whatever, but what you know is that the bigger the opening, the smaller the time. The smaller the opening, the bigger the time. And every time these two are related with the click, right? If you increase the aperture by 1 click, then you just reduce the shutter speed by 1 click, right? And each click is about 1/3 of the stop, which is really the measurement of the camera and stuff like that. But anyways, you know that. So f16 at 100 of a second at ISO 100 is equivalent to ISO 400, FA, and 1600 of a second. This is complicated math. But anyway, so the idea is you know that the aperture, which is the f-stop, and the shutter speed is inversely proportional, kind of like that, right? Okay. So how do we really begin our step? So finally, after 30 minutes of nonsense, 40 minutes of nonsense, we can talk about the exposure. I know some of you are still thinking about the wolverine, right? But I remember one time I told one of my good friends who are really into wildlife, I said, he asked me what is my favorite species to see. And I said, I want to see a wolverine. And he said, oh, you mean that actor in Hollywood? And I said, no, come on, Google it. Wolverine is an animal. And he said, okay, I'll Google it. And then he still see the Hollywood star there. So anyways, what you want to do is, so this is new actually, the first point here. A lot of the people say that, hey, I have a DA50 and it has such high megapixel, 45 megapixels. And so theoretically, I should use a much higher shutter speed, right? Because if the animal moves, right, and you have so many pixels, you need to have a higher shutter speed so that, each pixel's blur is less, right? It's kind of like the, you have bigger almost like if you zoom closer to an animal, then if the animal moves, you see bigger movement, right? Kind of like that. But what I find out recently, and I'll show you later, is that don't use high shutter speed. Somehow, and don't use too slow, of course, but just use, like, if, for example, if if a bear is running towards you, right? No matter how fast and how dangerous it is, you know that 1600 of a second is gonna freeze the freaking action. So there's no point to say that this is a bear, this is running towards me, I want critically sharp, so I set 5,000 of a second. And he said, well, even at 5,000 of a second, I have enough light, and so ISO is still only ISO 1600, and ISO 1600 in my camera is okay. No, it's not. So I compared it in my recent trip for photographing the pumas, and at the same ISO, even at one shot was taken in a crappier light, meaning lower light, but I actually exposed it more with a lower shutter speed, and the photo came out actually cleaner. And I'll show you that. It's almost unbelievable. So what I want to tell you is just don't waste your ISO onto the shutter speed. If you know, of course, don't risk it too, right? If a bobcat is jumping towards you, don't use 500 of a second. Well, actually, I'll tell you that story either too. Anyways, so for example, if it's a bird, try 1600 of a second to begin with. And if it's an animal, land animal, try 800 of a second, unless it's like a short tail weasel, long tail weasel, and those are crazy stuff. So those are, you use different shutter speed. So, so if the animal gets closer, meaning that it looks bigger in your frame, then use a high shutter speed. But begin with 1600 for birds, 800 for animals, and and then for the aperture, you just use wide open if possible, unless the animals, there's two things, right? If the animals have long snouts, such as bobcat, and does bobcat have that? Yeah, and coyote, and those, actually a lot of animals have long snouts. Try to use f5.6 instead of f4, because sometimes when they're moving fast, your focus point may catch on the nose, and if you only have f4, the depth of view couldn't cover the eyes, so the nose will be very clear and the eyes will be out of focus, and people will know that you're not good. As simple as that, and you'll feel very painful too. So just try to use f5.6 for those, but if you are very clear that you can just nail on the eyes, and of course go ahead and use f4 and f2.8 if you have a better lens. And also know your camera well. Know what is the maximum ISO for acceptable noise. For Nikon D850, I try to use everything below ISO 3200 or maybe 4000 is really the maximum that I would use before noise kicks in. But of course, I mean, in critical situation, 8000 is still okay, but not ideal, right? So this is the beginning. So just set your camera to manual and set the shutter speed and the aperture. And then use matrix metering for Nikon and evaluative metering for Canon. And I don't know what they call for Sony, but you know that thing that just look at all the pixels in the camera to measure the exposure. And because the cameras modern days are doing pretty good for that. And then step 3 is to set to octo ISO. So turn the ISO onto octo ISO, because we are going to decide on the aperture and shutter speed like before, like step 1. And don't worry if you don't know the details of it much, because it's going to be in my cheat sheet that you can download at the end of the talk, right? But just kind of remember what I said. Auto ISO, and then look into, what do I say? Because we and let the cameras, yeah. So that's what I talk about before, because we can always use our thumb and index finger to change the shutter speed and the aperture, but changing ISO is too difficult. Not difficult, but as long as it takes extra time, I don't want to do that for wildlife photography. So I'll let the ISO to adjust itself, really is the basic idea. And then you set exposure compensation to 2/3. And if you are adventurous and if you use Nikon camera, you can set it at +1 because the camera has really good dynamic range. So what it means is that even if the photo looks like really overexposed, actually the raw file get a lot more information and it's actually not overexposed. So I can do well, it's too complicated. So just remember +2/3 for this. And this feature is actually new. What I mean by that is, actually, just 2 or 3 years ago, this option is not even possible. When you use manual mode and use auto ISO, you are stuck into 0 exposure compensation unless you go into the touch screen menu and click on the ISO and the compensation and manually set it to +2/3, and then you can change it easily. So it really destroy the ability to really use that. But not until 2 years ago, my good friend Roy told me that this is now possible in Canon and also in Nikon. And so really, like, think about it, like just 2 years ago in the history of photography, this was not possible. And I don't even know why, but anyways, they added this option now that you can change the exposure compensation on the fly. So this is critical. Right? So now just summarize, it's very simple, right? Just aim the freaking thing into the animal and then look into your viewfinder. Because you set shutter speed 800 of a second, right? And then maybe you have set f5.6, right? And then you look at the bobcat, right? And then you check the ISO and look at it. And if you have a DA50, right? And then if the ISO set, right now is ISO 6400, right? Then you know that the photo is gonna be noisy. Right? So what do? You maybe you sacrifice a little bit of shutter speed from 800 of a second to maybe 500 of a second if the bobcat is not moving. Or I usually would just first go down like to f4 for my lens because all I need is just the eyes to be sharp, really. So you play with those, but then you make sure that the ISO is not too high for this option. And why do you want +2/3, right? I mean, like, if the camera is so good, right? Then you just set 0 and it should give you the perfect exposure, right? So the answer is wrong because, as I mentioned to you before, our human eyes and the camera, they see different things. Our eyes see things that will actually adjust, and then the shadow, we will automatically see more in the shadow. But for camera, for example, on the left-hand side is actually a perfect exposure in terms of the histogram and all. And then you see that the belly, the little belly of this little cup, right, is really dark. And it actually looks different than I actually saw him that day. So I want to brighten the belly part, right? But once I brighten it, it induced noise into it. So how to resolve that? Why don't we just overexpose the whole photo from the beginning, but without blowing off any of the bright details? So I maximize the exposure. If you look at the histogram on the right, it still didn't blow off anything, but then the whole histogram shifted to the right, right? So right now, the photo of the fur of the cup is perfect, right? But then the whole photo is too bright. So what do? You go into the highlight in Lightroom and then just slide down the highlight. So all the parts that are too bright will be back to normal. But then the shadow of the fur will be perfect, right? So then that's what I mean by exposed to the right, which is something that we wildlife photographers have to do, right? A lot of the human portrait photographer, they don't need to do that because human doesn't have such fur, right? So it may be a new concept to them, but for us, exposed to the right is something that is an additional step that we do for our wild animals, okay? So always +2/3, okay, right? Remember that? So, and then also another tip is always to take a test shot. So, and what do you mean by test shot is that you look into the histogram of the photo and look at the right-hand side of the histogram and see if all these things, there's nothing that is 0 on the right-hand side, so that you know you are pushing the histogram. Like if you see that the right-hand side, there's a whole area that is, everything is 0, then you mean that the photo is gonna be underexposed and you haven't maximized the camera's image sensor to acquire information, right? So the key for digital camera is really to maximize the acquisition of the data so that we can reprocess it at home so that it got back into what we envisioned in the photo, right? Very philosophical suddenly. So, but then nothing is really perfect even with this method. we have 2 hours, right? So we still have time. So nothing is perfect even with this super method, because there are two scenarios that are the kryptonite of this octo ISO plus 2/3. First is dark background with subject that has white color or with white highlight. For example, if imagine there's a short-eared owl flying that is bright color, right? Short-eared owl flying in a dark background. And then with the evaluative metering, matrix metering, the whole thing will be overexposed, which is okay most of the time if the animal is a little bit neutral tone. But if the animal has white high color, white feather and stuff, and then it will be blown over the top. And this is what happened. So this is something that happened when this short-eared owl fly by, and as you can see that is not recoverable, some of the highlights on the face, right? So it's very unfortunate. Not unfortunate, is I deserved it because I kept on teaching it, but I forgot it. So whenever you see a dark background with an animal that has white color, instantly change from +2/3 to -2, right? So this is the one thing that you have to remember, unfortunately. But 99% of the time, you're good to go. Do you want to see another painful thing? I mean, it's not as painful as the Wolverine, but this is another thing. So the bobcat kitten. Like, I was following her, everything was good, and then who told her to suddenly go into a dark background? And then the light was shining on him, and then I lost the details there as well. So it's very bad. So anyways, and so for this one, again, this time I'm smarter. So what I do in Falkland Island is I instantly change it to the auto ISO compensation -2, and I got this moody photo of rim light in backlit, right? So this is a success case in the extreme situation. And the second kryptonite for auto ISO plus 2/3 is the white background. So imagine if I'm following a puma. The habitat was all this grassy, all this land with soil and mud and like brownish color, right? Everything was fine. All of a sudden, he suddenly stood up on the ridge of the mountain, and then the background was this white color, distant mountain and sky, and I said, crap, and I was already tired because I just hiked like 2 hills and 5 miles uphill to follow. And so I didn't even, my brain is not even working. So this is what happened. So I waited and waited for this perfect background to come, and then I didn't realize that this is so underexposed. And you said, hey, Tin Man, I thought +2/3 wouldn't have this disastrous event, right? And this is one thing that's new to this class this time. Some friends, I don't know who, I will come and kill them. So they said that, because one of the things that I told you before is that if you set shutter speed and aperture, and if the ISO suddenly jumps up to 6400, you have to adjust the shutter speed and ISO, right? And the problem of that is sometimes you are in the heat of the action and you forgot to check the ISO. And even if you have very high shutter speed and all, and you could have reduced it, you didn't because you were just focusing on capturing the photos, right? And boom, the ISO suddenly jumped to like 20,000, for example. So the photo will not be usable because it would be too noisy, right? And so some of my friends say, hey, Tin Man, there's an option called maximum ISO that you can put on. And then the ISO would not go above your desired value, which is like 4,000, for example, right? And I said, this is such a great idea. Why didn't I think about it? Thank you so much. And then I set my camera to max ISO 4,000, thinking that it will solve every problem, and how stupid I was. And the thing was, when you are shooting, when you're photographing the animal, right? And then you set your shutter speed, set your aperture in the heat of the action. What did I tell you to do? I want to ask you to check your ISO to see if it's too high, right? And I was photographing this puma. I said, the light seems to have dropped. And so let me check my ISO. So I was shooting at like 1600 of a second, f5.6. And I said, okay, the ISO is 4,000. Wow, that's perfect, right? It still hasn't exceeded my the desired value. So I'm good, right? So I kept shooting and shooting and said, that's weird. Maybe I can even go to like F8 so that I can get like more details on his face and blah, blah, blah. And then I checked the ISO again and said, it's still 4,000. Wow, how nice. The light must have increased so that I can keep shooting, right? And you know, sometimes your brain doesn't work when you are in Patagonia, I guess. So after like 5 minutes of this ultimate shooting with the Puma walking towards me and doing all this crazy stuff, I then realized that, shit, my camera was on maximum ISO. So actually, the correct ISO would have been 10,000, but because I have set the maximum ISO, the camera just set at 4,000 and the whole picture was completely underexposed. And there were no warning to me. Like the camera would not say that, hey, maximum ISO is reached. You gotta change something, right? So it didn't tell me that. And all you can see is just the meter. You see that the meter has this bar that shows the underexposed, but it was too late. So by that time, I said, crap, like look at this photo. So noisy in the background, and then you lost a lot of details and all, right? So I immediately, at that time, I still didn't know about the maximum ISO. I said, this doesn't look right. Let me just reduce my shutter speed to a lower shutter speed. Hopefully it will be good, right? So I get the second photo. And look at this photo. You get a lot better color and you see a lot more details, right? But this is actually, the maximum ISO was still on actually, but right now it was only on +1 for compensation, which is really the image that I was supposed to get if I didn't set maximum ISO, right? So this is still underexposed in my opinion because of the noise and all, because we want to overexpose and then reduce the highlights, right? So I finally said, crap, how do I turn it off, this freaking maximum ISO, right? So instead of turning it off, which I didn't know, I just set my shutter speed to 320th of a second. And I still trust that my muscles can still handle the 601.4 okay with the Puma moving, which I did. And so finally, with a much slower shutter speed, and I switched to compensation of 2 1/3, which is because of the sky color. Then you see that if you look between these three photos, look at the, it's the same light, but just because of the exposure, I didn't expose to the right. Even this photo that a lot of people will accept that as a very good exposure is really, really bad actually. If you blow up the eyes, you can see the noise. But if you overexpose it, well, unfortunately, this Puma has the right eye that is injured, so you can't really blow up and see the details of the eyes, but it means she's a beautiful Puma though. Anyways, so now you guys can see the difference and the like the pain that I have for not able to change the compensation on time, and also the maximum, the deadly maximum ISO that you have to avoid. So always remember that. I hope my pain becomes become not a problem for you, that you can avoid it. So let me show you some happier photo, right? This is a photo that you typically can get 99% of the time if you set auto ISO +2/3. And so like this endangered and Joaquin Kid Fox just came out from the den, was playing with the grass, with the leaves, and was trying to bring it back to the den. And it was just a sudden movement, maybe less than 1 second. You would have no time to do manual exposure because she was moving from shadow to brightness to shadow to brightness and all. But with this method, nailed the exposure perfectly. And this one as well, perfect exposure. And this one, backlit, side lit actually, low light, and I tell you, if you guys would have a chance to go to the Arctic and you see the frozen sea ice turning into this salmon color in the back, and then these two polar bear cub came up and then the mother bear was looking at you in such a close distance, you will forget about all the camera settings. You will just be in awe, and then you will just be like, okay, I just wish to take a photo of that, and then you couldn't think, right? And that's what I did. I couldn't think, but fortunately, I set auto ISO +2/3, and every photos turned out to be really good. And if you can see that my shutter speed was not too high, which was stupid for me because I was on a rocking boat, and I should have set higher shutter speed, but at that time I couldn't think. So thankfully, I got a photo when all three of them were looking at me, and this photo, because of that auto ISO +2/3, of course not just because of that, it won the Highly Honored Award in Nature's Best Polaroid Passion category 1 year. So you see that it was in the Smithsonian. So, so just want to show you that how much it can save you if you use this method. So you guys promised me, right? So if this method helped me to win many awards and publications, would you promise me to give it a try next time? Do I have your commitment? What is it again? Auto ISO plus 2/3, okay? All right, so this is, okay, great. You guys are still with me. God, we are really talking for an hour. So the second part now. So, well, actually not second part. So, so I'm actually not gonna talk about this part because we are running out of time, but this is actually another thing. Like when you are shooting everything else, use auto ISO plus 2/3, but when you're shooting birds in flight, change it to spot metering and start with maybe FA 16 of 100 of a second, and don't use auto ISO in this case, because for birds, it's very different from land animals, because land animals, they move from shadow to bright area to under the tree to behind the trees to, you know, all these kind of things. But for birds in flight, they are up in the sky, and everywhere they fly, they were being shined by the same amount of sunlight, right? So they would not suddenly fly unless you are shooting in some forest, right? They are not going to be in and out of the shadows. And if they're in and out of the shadow, keep using the auto ISO method. But if they're in the open, then you just need to use manual everything and then just spot meter on the mid-tone and you'll be good. And in my guide that is free to download, you find out more information of how to find the mid-tone and those kind of things. But it's very easy. So anyway, so this is how you get burst in flight. Just spot meter into the, turn it into spot metering instead of evaluative and matrix metering. Find something that is mid-tone color, which is like kind of like gray color in black and white. So the tall grass in the back is kind of this color. So you just focus on that and then set it as like plus 1/3 or 2/3 again, because you want to evaluate expose to the right, and you nail the exposure every time. And with that method, even if there's a sky background, you will not be affected because you are just measuring the light being shined on the bird by spot metering in the mid-tone. Well, it sounds like a mouthful, but you understand, right? So what about snow, right? Snow, people say, oh, it's so difficult, everything is white, right? So this I have to give credit to my teacher, Charles Glasser, right? Mr. Charles. He mentioned that all you need to do is just to spot meter onto the snow. Because snow is white, right? Snow white, right? So you spot meter onto the snow and then change all your adjustment, right? You move the shutter speed or the aperture or the ISO so that the meter will read plus 2 1/3, right? And then you just fix that exposure, and then whatever you shoot, the snow will be perfectly white, and then everything else will be in perfect exposure, right? So is that, so snow, spot metering plus 2 1/3, right? That one is also in my guide. So, so people will say that, how come you don't want to use aperture priority, right? Aperture priority is actually one of the things that a lot of people, a lot of professionals ask you to do. And do you guys know why? The reason is because when they were professionals, the auto ISO plus 2/3 is not a possible technology. That's it. That's why I thought about it for a long time. Like I argue with people, like, how come you don't use auto ISO? He's like, oh, AV works for me. And it's just because auto ISO wasn't possible before, because it's so much better. Look at this example. I was, at that time, auto ISO plus 2/3 was not invented. I was in Yellowstone and we were waiting for this bobcat to jump, and I set my aperture to the slowest. I think it was at 5.6 because I have a 600. I think I even have a 2x, or it's a f8 actually. And I checked the shutter speed. It was like 2,000 of a second. And I set the ISO to like 1600 or whatever. I said, yes, I'm gonna nail the jump, because my focusing point was perfect on the eyes of the bobcat. And the bobcat was like crouching down and then getting ready to jump up. And once it jumped up, guess what? The light drops 2 stops. Like it was in an overcast day, and the sun just got into the cloud right before the bobcat jumps. So I click a few shots, look into the viewfinder, and say, yes, I nailed it. And then I go home, and this is what I got. Because of the aperture priority, so I couldn't control the shutter speed. So the shutter speed, because of the lower light, it's jumped from 2,000 of a second and becomes 500 of a second. And 500 of a second you're not gonna freeze the motion of a bobcat jumping, which is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So don't ever use aperture priority if you think about my painful experience. I mean, at least it's not a Wolverine, right? So how about TV? So TV is the same thing. You never really know when, because you fix the shutter speed, right? And the aperture, when it drops to the smallest number, like if you have a 600 f4 lens, and if the shutter speed is not high, is too high, then and if you set the ISO, then the whole photo will be underexposed, right? So, and I told you that underexposed photo is no good, right? So people will say, oh, I use auto ISO and I use max, blah, 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 right? But why do you want to use TV? Because you can control the aperture. You just let the camera to have too many controls, in my opinion, in that. Anyways, so these are minor stuff. Auto ISO plus 2/3 is what you need to remember today. Let me show you a beautiful photo of a great horn owlet flying in front of a wildflower field, perfect pose, and very beautiful artistic shot, right? I should submit it to some prestigious award. So you guys all know about the experience, right? So again, one of the most important aspects of wildlife photography, or maybe the most important one, is speed. And if you are the fastest and you have a good aim, you can get the craziest action shots. And each step that will save, if you know how to do each step properly, it can save you precious time. Okay, so what I mean by that is, some of my students who learn this quick autofocus techniques, they said, hey, huge congrats to so and so for wonderful shot. They got 600 likes in Nampo, which is one of the criteria I told some of my students is that, hey, just try to post a photo there, because Nampo group is really, really good in that they don't care who you are. If your photos are good and evoke an emotion, people are liking it and commenting it. So it's really the best testing ground for your photo before you really want to see if your photo can move people and stuff. So I asked them to see if they can get about 500 likes, and if, whenever they apply some of the methods and they tried it and they get more than 500, then they will share the good news with me. So, and then I think you are in the audience. Sorry, I blur your thing because I don't want to have copy of it, but I'm so happy that you won the National Wildlife Federation magazine with a flying bird, right? And then there's just a lot of nice photos that they use the method. But I want to share with you this example is, so I was talking to my friend Donald, Hardy, and Brand, and then they told me that there was a group of barn owls, wild barn owls that showed up in San Simeon one time. It was just 3 hours drive from me. So instead of like traveling to all this Alaska or those, it basically just took me probably $30 to get the gas and drive up there. And I just went into the field. I saw the barn owl flying, and it was a misty day, kind of foggy and all. So I didn't even care. I just said auto ISO plus 2/3, and I just wait for that and apply the auto focus method. And this barn owl was just flying towards me, and suddenly it dived down to pounce onto a mice. And I got this photo, and this photo, oh, North American Nature Photography Association. Thank you. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, great to meet you, Josh. Really great that NANFO is doing a lot of good things about ethics and all. And indeed, I think your group in Facebook is the best group right now for critiquing, for photo. So wonderful. Anyway, so this photo took me $30 to drive there, and then I just wait there, and it won the highly honored award in Nature's Best Photography for the bird category. And really, so you don't need to travel far away. What I want to tell you is, as long as you master auto ISO plus 2/3 and this method I'm going to show you, which is very, very basic, actually, very simple, you can nail a lot of the stuff that you can get as long as you have the opportunity, and just take care of that opportunity, right? So once you master it, you will no longer be fearful for fast flying birds or erratic movement of animals, and you never have the heartbreak, right? You never have the heartbreak of the Wolverine, and you also once people see that you were able to capture this special motion, people's emotion will be evoked because this is an unrepeatable moment, as they know. So for my class, I teach a lot about how to evoke emotion. And I think action photography has this inherent capability to do that. So anyways, so let's go to the step-by-step, right? Step 1, set continuous AF, which is AI servo in Canon, AFC, for Nikon. I don't know what it is for Sony, IAF. Sorry, just kidding. But you know, so just set up continuous instead of single shot, so that because that way the autofocus point will keep refreshing to check on if the subject has moved, right? And I suggest you to set single point focus instead of surrounding point because, sorry. If you use surrounding point, some people swear by surrounding point because they say birds are flying towards me and then it catch on and it can get a sharp shot. But time and again, it screw me up because if I was photographing a bobcat, the surrounding point always catch on the nose and then my photo will be ruined. So, so if the animal has long bill and snout, for example, turns is also critical. If you use surrounding point, you better use FA because one time I went with my good friend Salah to photograph turns and I got home and 5,000 of my photos were critically sharp on the bill. And I realized that the camera just catch on the color of the bill much more easily. So you have to use FA in this case. So single focus point, and number 3 is very critical in that, you know, the time for your camera to focus is really depending on when you raise your camera and you aim at the subject, how much distance the lens element has to move to get into that subject, right? So one important thing is if you let the camera to begin with an approximately equal distance to the subject, then the lens element just need to move this tiny bit and then you will snap on the thing. But if you originally focus on the moon, for example, and then you say, oh, there's this bear running towards me, let me get it. The lens has to focus from infinity back to the thing, and then you always hear those sound for the focus and then you miss the shot, right? So pre-focus means that every time when you see a subject, you don't focus on the subject first. You look for something that is contrasty and nearby the subject. For example, let me show you this. This is not the example. God, where's my example here? Yes, this example right here. I was photographing the Mandarin duck, and the focusing will be difficult because the day was overcast and all. So I just saw a rock nearby the Mandarin duck, and I quickly just pre-focused on the rock. And then by the time I aim at the Mandarin duck, it's very close to the perfect focus. And then I snap it on, and then I got this photo. So this is the key for pre-focusing. Okay, and so this is step 3, and step 4 is don't focus on the middle of the eyes, because I think in the middle of the eyes is really just lens, right? And it reflects light and all. It messes up the camera actually, surprisingly. So try to focus on the surrounding of the eye, and I'll tell you why, how, what does it mean. And another thing, number 5 is really weird. And I don't usually tell people, but a lot of the beginning photographers, right? They're like Rambo, right? Machine gun Rambo, right? They just see something moving and then they just half press or they use the thumb to focus. And then once they see that the lens is moving, the focusing point, they are already pressing the shutter and then let the camera blast out, and they wouldn't even let the camera breathe, let the camera lock the focus, right? You imagine you are driving a fighter jet and all, you let the lock onto the subject first, right? So just wait for a freaking little bit. That's the key thing. That every time when you feel that the camera is locking, don't press it. Just give it just a tiny bit of time, because that tiny bit of time will make or break the thing. And of course, if you can't wait, then just shoot it, right? But most of the time, we are a little bit in too much of a rush. And I ask you to give a little bit of breathing room for the camera, which is crazy for what I'm saying, but I hope you guys know what I mean. Next time when you try to lock the focus and do that, just give it just like and then you press it, and then you find that your photo will be much sharper. And don't, like, some people pounce their finger onto the button, and your whole camera is going to be rotating, and then everything will be rotating. So roll your finger, meaning that it's like when you need to leave your fingerprint for your passport, you roll your finger, right? So you roll your finger onto the button so that it doesn't create this vibration. And also always take multiple shots. And the key thing about the multiple shot, a lot of people misunderstood this thing, is that what is meant by multiple shot? I just press a little the same time like that. This is multiple shot, right? No, this is not multiple shot. Because if, for example, if your focusing point was wrong, like if you focus on something that is bad, like the nose of an animal, and if you take multiple shots, all these shots are going to be out of focus as well. So whenever you take multiple shots, always try to release your finger a little bit and then aim at something that is a little bit different from your original spot. And then try to press it again, and then take a few, and then you release and take a few, and then you release, and so that you don't have this catastrophic error that you take 100 photos of the nose of an animal, and then you didn't have one keeper, right? So this is very critical on that. And then the last one is also really important in that, which is very interesting too, is always use lens with big aperture. And people say, hey, come on, nowadays these zoom lens, these small zoom lens, like 150 to 600 Sigma or whatever lens, right? They are really lightweight, and then they have 600 zoom and really convenient, they can hike and all. But I didn't realize that too, because people would say that, oh, this lens is pretty good, and I saw some reviews and all, and I said, oh wow, it's very similar to almost like my 600 f4 plus 1.4 converter, right? And everything changed when I had a chance to use a 400 2.8 lens recently in India. Crazy to say, but the 400 2.8 is way sharper than the 600 f4. And people will say, are you crazy? They are all $10,000 lenses. Why? Why would that happen? And the main reason is because the key for a camera to focus accurately is how much light you let in through the lens, right? So a 400 2.8 lens has such a huge opening that it let in double the amount of light than a 600 f4. So with that much more light, the camera will be so happy, and they can focus just super accurately and much faster on the focusing. So when people say that my 400 2.8 is so much sharper than the 600 f4, they make sense. But now that I think about it, it's not really because of the lens element. It's just because of the amount of light that it let into the image sensor to capture the perfect AF before those Rambo people, before they even let off the shutter to take the photo, right? I told you that you have to leave a little bit of time, right? With the 2.8, you don't need to leave time. It's instant. It's instant. It's crazy. So what I mean by that is, if you're using a 150 to 600, the maximum aperture is like f6.3, right? So what that means is, if I have a 400 2.8, I have double, I can let in double the light of f4. So it means that it focuses almost half, like double faster, like twice faster. And because of that, it might look like almost twice sharper too. It was just insane when I look at my photos, I have to tell you. So if you use a 6.3 lens, it means that it's like also maybe 1/2 or maybe 1/4 of the light of a 600 f4. So it's just laughable, right? I don't even want to think about how little bit of light you're letting in those lenses. So of course the photos are not going to be sharp because of that. So unfortunately, people will say, oh, 400 2.8 is too expensive and it's too heavy and all. But after I use it in my India trip and the Japan trip, it's just insane. I shot the 500 PF lens a lot. It was lightweight and all, and the 600 f4 lens. But when you use the 400 2.8, it's like you raise your camera, your lens into a flying bird. It's like that. And then you press it, and then it's ultra sharp. It's not even fair. So this is a new finding to me. And if you are interested in talking to me about this topic, I would love to talk to you more about my finding. And I'll probably share more in my Facebook group too. I mean, not my newsletter about this, and my YouTube channel too, if you haven't subscribed to that. God, okay. So one thing about the focus, right? So if your focusing point is in the so Anne asked me one question about the back button focus. It's a very good question. So I used to be a back button focus shooter, but in the last 10 years, I was using my index finger because I heard some bird photographers, they said that the index finger is always respond faster than the thumb, because when you're holding the camera, the thumb is kind of a little bit of the force is used to hold the camera. So when you use the thumb to focus, you're not gonna be as flexible as the index finger. And then some friends, after they heard that, they said, "This is bullshit. You're stupid. Like, rear focusing is so good." Blah, blah, blah. And then I was depressed. And then one time I went to Boca Chica, and then I saw my friend Salah. I don't know if any of you know Salah. Is it BSME? Wings in Motion. If you search his Instagram, he has some of the most insane burst in flight shots. So I admire his action photography a lot. So I asked him, like, do you use back focus? Am I the only one who doesn't use it? He said, I never use back focus, and I'm doing all good. It's just kind of, he doesn't sound like that, but so that's the answer to my question. So so the depth of view of the tiger. So because God, Deborah, you're here. You don't need to do that. You know everything. So at first I was worried that the 2.8 would only get the eyelash of the tiger, but somehow with so much light, it's just crazy. It nailed the eyes every freaking time. I gotta show you some photos. It's really sweet. And I advise you to also talk to Pratik, because he also tried the 400 2.8. So we both are like worshiper of the 400 2.8. Like, this is something that is like a unicorn of the camera world that you have to worship them and protect them. You can't just say that this is a lens. This is just not a lens. This is out of this world. Yeah. Anyway, so what I want to tell you that is don't focus on here, but focus on here, because it has more contrast, right? So the camera can know, like, oh, this is a black blob of crap. I don't know what to focus on, and then you miss the focus, right? So always try to look for this contrast when you focus. And then also when you focus on that for a while, take 3 pictures, and then you move the square, like you move your lens a little bit to another spot and focus on that. Because sometimes the camera got stuck and they didn't respond and all, and they may have caught onto the bill and you didn't know it. So my thing is, when things are good, keep on shooting. Don't say, okay, I already shot 5 shots, one of them is gonna be sharp. No, keep shooting, keep changing the area of the eyes, left eye and then the right eye, surround the eyes and keep taking photos. And then sometimes you surprise yourself that 99 of the 100 photos were out of focus, and then you got 1 ultra sharp photos, and then you thank me later, okay? So the build of the turn is very critical in this case. And sometimes you have to, so this is a key thing that I want to share with you is, always check your photos every night after each outing, because if you wait until the end of the trip, sometimes you never know, because if you look into the viewfinder, the LCD of the camera, you would not see this small error. So I have 5,000 photos of the turns that are ultra cool in the action, shaking, like throwing fish in midair and all this, but none of them were sharp in the eyes, right? So I went back the next day and then I shoot at f8 and everything's soft. Right? But of course, when friends like Salah, he can shoot 2.8 and probably you can still get all these sharp shots. So another thing is, so in low light, when you autofocus, people when they see me in low lights, they always think that I'm a maniac, because I just press the shutter nonstop. Like when you see me in low light, you just hear the clicking sound. I wouldn't stop. And you say, are you crazy? But the key thing is, in low light, you have very slow shutter speed. You just have to keep shooting. And like for example, this is like almost completely dark when we're shooting this Greyhound Owl. And I knew that I only have like 50th of a second. And so all I need to do is just to like breathe in and breathe out a little bit, hold the breath, and then you just like that, change the focusing point a little bit like this, and keep changing the focus point, like move around the eyes and all, and change it. So this is the first shot, and this is probably the 50th shot, and then this is the 100th shot, and this is sharp, right? And I mean, this is like 200% blow up, so you see some noise and all, but it's actually manageable. So you see the difference, and if you you gave up after 50 shots and you get this, and it's kind of borderline usable, right? But then when you get this is sharp, right? So keeping it is like that. So using the same method, you can get not only birds in flight, you can get bears in flight. And in this situation, when the focusing is really tough, you still were able to, you will still be able to nail this kind of shot by pre-focusing on the rock and whatever, the grass and stuff, and do that. And I explained to you about this photo, right? So 2 out of 3 is done, right? So we are still pretty good on time, and I'm surprised that like most of you are still here. Probably most of you will leave pretty soon, but because I'm gonna say something you might not like to hear. But anyways, so now we talk about the technical stuff, and so you promised me, right? Promise me to try that, right? Try to use this kind of AF method and see if it works for you, right? And oh yeah, thank you. And oh, thanks a lot. So like you guys will be accountable with each other, right? I'll ask you again next week and see if you tried it. Okay. So finally, a super technique to choose your photos for contest submission, right? We all want to do that, right? Like nobody tell me which of my photos are gonna win the award, right, Deborah? So what I want to tell you here is that you have to admit, like something like Game of Thrones, right? Why would that attract so many people? And why do so many people love to read 50 Shades of Grey, right? And the traditional literature, nobody want to watch it. And so what happened is that the reality is that there are millions and millions of photographers now, and the attention span on Facebook and Instagram, people will just look at maybe one photo and they will not for less than 1 second, and then they scroll on. So even though you spend thousands of dollars, right, or maybe tens of thousands of dollars for your camera gear, if you don't know how to take a photo that captures people's emotion and grab their attention instantly, the thousands of photos are gonna be in a waste, right? You probably will just share a small photo and then with your copyright name, and then those are the best photos that you ever take. And people will spend less than 1 second, and then they may leave you 10 likes in the total, and then this photo you kind of got disappointed, and you didn't even want to take photos again. Is that, oh, Facebook, this algorithm, they are bad people, right? Instagram, they're trying to make money for us, and blah, blah, blah. You do all these things. And but then this is really, not true. In that, when the world is changing, we have to adapt to it, right? And that's why Game of Thrones has all this unexpectedness, and then it attracts people, right? So you need something different to draw people, unfortunately. And drawing attention to people is an art form that is, you cannot ask a wildlife photographer guru, a National Geographic guru. I'm sorry to say that, I mean, I admire a lot of those people, but you can ask them to teach you, because drawing attention, evoking emotion is an art form in psychology and visual cortex, right? You don't really know, like even if I have a Wolverine jumping in the sky, if you don't know how to create an image in terms of the placement, the composition, the lines and lights and everything, people will not react to it. I mean, well, people will probably react to it, Wolverine jumping, but you know my point. But the key people to ask for this kind of how to evoke emotion is to ask the grandmaster painters, like Van Gogh, Da Vinci, Picasso, those people, like how did their work become immortal, right? So many years and they still sold for $500 million, right? And their work is very subtle, right? You have to spend a lot of time to really understand it. They know about how to co-create a lot of those stuff. So, and surprisingly, after I actually studied a lot of them in the last 10 years, and then you don't really need to spend so much time with the master painters, because somehow most of the award winners in the national and national awards, if you look carefully to them, they actually have those ingredients in them. Some of the photographers got lucky. They didn't know that they got those, and so they will win one big award and then they may not win again. But then some of the photographers, they know the secrets. And then when you look at their portfolio, you know that this guy or this girl know the secret. And then when they repeat these ingredients in the photos, it keeps getting all kinds of recognition. So it's almost unfair, but you play the game, and then when your photos can evoke people's emotion, and then you can build upon those techniques to really add into your self-expression to it. That's my idea about that. We should not reinvent the wheel. We should learn from the grandmasters, and we should learn from all these hidden ingredients of the award winners to know what exactly are those ingredients. So if you know those ingredients, you know that your photos can grab attention. And a lot of my students right now, they are really getting a lot of attention everywhere. And they already knew it too. I know they are happy because they are starting to get the idea. And I'm very happy, excited for them. Some of them are more talented than me, and I see that I'm super happy. So instead of passively, so a lot of us, like when I started to do photography, I go out every single evening after work to hike for 2 hours to photograph. And I didn't really improve, except that I got more fit, right? I lost a lot of weight because of that. But this is a passive method. Like you just go into the nest and then you wait and wait and wait for something to happen. And even if you get a shot, nobody are gonna like the shot. And then you just like, oh, I'm just gonna use it as my self-hobby. But really, you have so much potential. You spend tens of thousands of dollars into the best camera that nobody can buy just 5 years ago, right? And you have that capability. All you need is just to know this kind of Game of Thrones ingredients. I mean, I hate the season right now, as I mentioned. But before that, right? As you know about these ingredients, and if you just add a little bit of that into it, then people will get the attention, and then they will care, like, what is this photos about? How come it get my attention? And then they say, oh my God, this photo is really moving. I look at the story and I gotta make a difference. I need to protect them, right? This is really what we want to do here. So, so this is an example. One of my students' friends, he said, Tim, and I wanted to share something with you. My daughter has been a fan of my photography. And today I share with her a picture I'm currently working on. I asked her what she thought of it. And her immediate response was to ask if I had taken it. She said that she was hugely impressed and that my photography had gone up in quality quite a bit. She loved the picture and it isn't even finished being processed. I really like to thank you for enabling me to improve the quality of my work. So it's just some very simple addition to the photo, some simple ingredients that you might not even notice. It's almost like matrix, right? You know that if you have never used your eyes, you never know. It's almost like the thing like when you're buying a new car, right? This is the typical example, right? Once you bought your new car, you find out that everywhere on the road has the same car, right? But before that, you never knew about those cars. It's just this kind of ingredient. That's what I want to bring to your attention. So what I teach you on that is, do we still have time? Yes, we do. God. So very simple step to instantly transform your photos very easily. So for example, go to Nature's Best Photography. I'm not a spokesperson for them, but I mean, the magazine is not expensive. Go to their website, naturesbestphotography.com, or go to Amazon. They have the BBC photo book, yearbook, and just buy like copies of maybe the last 3 or 4 years, or maybe the last 5-6 years, and just get those books. And I didn't realize it before, but when I started to read those books, I was amazed. Like, oh my God, these photos are so good that I'm never gonna be as good as them. Right? I still remember the first time I read the magazine by Nature's Best. I saw Federico Veronesi's photos. I said, oh my God, he won the grand prize and he was standing in front of the elephant. I'll never be as good as them. Right? I can't even get a photo that is not underexposed. So, but then within just a very short time, once I know these ingredients, once I studied the grandmasters, things started to change. So it's really not impossible. It's not about talent or anything. I mean, I'm a couch potato before, but when you got more interested in learning, it's like almost like a detective. Like I want to learn about this hidden theme, hidden ingredients in those winners. So what I learned, I can share with you actually 3 things that I'm going to share with you today. So a lot of the people say that if you look into is it Joe Sartori, very famous National Geographic photographer, which is very true. He said some of the most important aspect of wildlife photography is really to have good light, good background, and good action, right? And these 3 things is really what is the critical requirement. And it's true, but a lot of the people stop there. And when they take a photo, they have some separation of the background from the animal and they say, I have good background. But really, it's not really a good background. What is a good background? Let me show you what is a good background. to me. So on the upper left is is the standard of a lot of people. They said, I got a pretty good background, like pretty blur and fine and all. But if you submit a photo with this kind of background, with you see some white highlight and some dark highlight, some green versus brown, is very distracting actually, because these are like complementary colors and black and white and green and brown and reddish and all. It's really like chaos. But people will say, oh, this is pretty good, and I'm going to submit to the photo contest. And if they didn't win, they suck. I'll never submit it to again, right? So this is wrong. You have to analyze all these award winners and see that what they are getting is something like the lower left and the lower right photo. They get this kind of background to completely, what is it called, abstract the subject into something that is very artistic, right? So this is the first thing that you have to look back into your photos and just try to tell yourself to admit that I suck. My background is actually not that good. I hate Tin Man, right? So just like that. And because I myself find that too. A lot of my beginning photos, right? You just didn't have that critical eye to tell that. But if you look into this diagram, you see that these are the distracting thing that's why the award-winning contest didn't pick me, right? So this is the first criteria. The second criteria, which is my golden rule, right? So the golden rule is very interesting in that, let me show you how to get the golden rule. So if you go to a field, a forest to photograph an owl, right? A lot of the people will see that, sun is setting, the light is gonna be gone. Oh, look, there's no more light onto the owl. Let's go home, right? So that's a lot. I actually myself saw a lot of those situations that people will actually pack up once the sun is on the horizon. There is still some sunlight shining on maybe the fence or one of the distant trees and all, but the animal or the bird is already in the shadow and they gave up. But actually, my window just like, I thought there was an owl flying by. So actually, this is actually the best opportunity for you to create something very different. And this diagram shows that the owl is in the shadow, right? It's my beautiful drawing, right? I downloaded it in Icon Finder. It's a nice owl. It's a screech owl, right? So, and then the tree is still under the sunlight, the last ray of light, right? So in this situation, you have to jump up and celebrate and clap, but don't scare away the bird, because what you do is now you no longer need to have the sun directly behind you, because when the animal is in shadow, it becomes like an overcast day. You can shoot everywhere. So then you can adjust. Like if the tree is actually pretty far away from the owl, you can still go and align yourself so that if you use a long lens, the background is the tree that is still under the light, but the owl is in the shadow. And because it's near sunset, the contrast of the light is not that big. So the light is very saturated, meaning that you do not need a lot of dynamic range to capture the bright and the dark in those moments. So you can't do that in the midday. You can only do it during that time. And when you focus and expose for the owl, the background will glow in golden. So anybody get my idea? So when the bird or the animal is in shadow, and when you still see a patch of light in the background somewhere, try to align them together so that the background is purely bright, but the foreground is the animal here, and this is what you get. So the background will have this golden glow, and because it's still have some ambient light onto the bird, so the bird is actually okay, even though it doesn't have this dramatic golden light, but it's still okay, it's good. But then the background will glow. And this is something that people don't usually see in their eyes. It's because of the limited dynamic range of the camera. So it makes the background completely glow. And what we want to do is not to say that our camera is bad because it doesn't have dynamic range. It's to harness the weakness of the camera to create some images that people can see in their human eyes. God, I am so good at saying long lines, right? Okay, so this is what I mean by having a golden glow. This is another example. There is still some light on the owl, but the light is actually dropping. And the more it drops, actually, the better it is for the background to glow, right? If you want golden, then that's the point. And again, this one, also the background, the frozen sea ice. And I told you that during that time, how do you expose, right? Anybody know how to tell me? Tell me. Anybody know how do you expose this? I said, oh, how do you expose it? The polar bear is white and then this thing, yeah, it's so complicated, right? It's octo ISO plus 2/3, right? But the key thing is when the polar bear is in the shadow. Yes, nailed it, right? Good point. So when the polar bear is in the shadow and the background is bright, when you take a photo, the background and the foreground glows. So it's almost like magic here. So so this is another example of that. There's still some light on the owl, so this is not considered really shadowy, but still the light is dropping, as you can see from the horizon in the reflection of the eye. So the background is actually not gold. It's just like a muddy, really nasty place. But because of the last ray of light, which is usually very orangey, like very warm, so it makes everything turn golden. And when you take a photo like that, it's almost like the owl is on Mars, right? And so you get something that instantly captures people's emotion. And this is what I call the golden rule. So next time when everybody are leaving and packing up to go to the Chinese restaurant or whatever, stay there and keep on finding that golden background. Why? Because now look at these names, right? Federico Veronesi, Thang Tran, Denise Ippolito, Tin Man Lee, I don't know who that is, and many more. So if you look back into Nature's Best Photography, Federico Veronesi won the grand prize in 2012 or 2011 with two buffaloes fighting. Guess what? Golden background. Thang Tran won the bird category of Nature's Best, I think 2 years ago, with two groups doing the mating dance on the water, incoming towards the camera. Guess what? Golden background. Denise Ippolito with her winner with a really beautiful penguin with this long feather. I don't know the name of that penguin. She got that won the, I think, the bird category that year in Nature's Best Photography. So each one of them won the category or the grand prize among 25,000 photographs in over 50 countries, right? So Denise is that penguin picture. Guess what? Golden background. And this year I won the Fox picture, and you can see that it's kind of golden background as well, like kind of orange gold, but I can consider me as one of the groups, okay? So, and then if you look back into a lot of those photos, suddenly you see that, oh my God, I suddenly see gold everywhere in the photos. What happened? I didn't know that you can actually get golden color. I thought that the place is plated in gold. That's why those people get it. No, it's actually this simple reason to get that. So promise me that next time when you go out, wait for that and see if you can get any golden background. And if you can find that golden background with the animal, shoot me an email at tinman@tinmanly.com and I'll congratulate you. So, okay. So we still have time. Yes, we still have 15 minutes. So that's good. We're still on schedule. So golden background, right? Okay. So just another simple story while we are talking about this, right? So I joined a tour by Charles Glassett, who is my teacher, on a brown bear trip, $8,000, not cheap, right? But it's like you go into a remote lodge and then you fly small plane, and so it's understandable. And with the flight and expense, it's more than $10,000, and so it's not cheap. And it's 12 days, including all the flight from Los Angeles and all. And at that time, I was working 9 to 5 every day and very busy, and so vacation was very difficult to come by. And so I spent 12 days, more than $10,000 onto that. And I spent a year to prepare, like how do I photograph brown bears and all, very excited, right? And we were in the field for 8 days looking for bears, but that year it was just a very bad year. The salmon run was early, and so even though there were a lot of bears, a week before, we didn't see a single bear for 7 days, right? Can you imagine that? You spend $10,000, 12 days vacation. It's like the only vacation for a whole year that I work every day, and and then I go there, and then 7 days we were just looking and looking. It was raining hard. We didn't see a single bear. Very frustrating, right? And then at the end, we decided to charter a plane to look for bears further away. And finally, we found a group of bears pouncing for salmon. But we only have about 2 hours. before we have to leave, right? Because we charter a plane, it's not cheap at all. So we were, and at that time, that place was pretty far away, pretty high up. So the water was really cold, and I was wearing the wrong waders. So it was like really ice cold, and I was freezing my lower body, right? And so in that 2 hours, it actually all came down to 1 second that a bear was running towards my direction head on. So, so think about what I was thinking at that time. Besides that, will I survive? Is that I better not mess this up, right? I only have this one chance that the bear would run left and right or away from you, but very rare that they will actually run towards your direction and show it. So let me show you the sequence here. So I was thinking about what metering mode should I use? What AF do I need to use? And now you guys, after this 1 hour, 40 minutes, you all know the method, right? So this is the first moment when I saw that within 1 second, right? So can you tell me what happened to this background? I just told you that, right? This background is not perfect, even though it looks perfect to most of you before, but after this talk, you can no longer say that it's perfect because of the line, the horizontal line below the green is crossing the bear. And in that kind of photos is beautiful, but it's not gonna win you an international award. So this is problematic. So I was thinking, should I even take the photo? Because I mean, of course I'm gonna take a photo, but this photo is gonna be decent, but it's not gonna be winning big awards, right? And then the bear suddenly decided to look at something and started to do that, right? And then started to do this, and go this. So everything is within this 1 second because this camera takes 10 photos per second, right? So I told you, these are not perfect, right? The rocks, the background, the bright background, right? Because you don't want a background that is brighter than your subject, right? So this is not good. And so it's very frustrating. The action is good, but the background is distracting. And then I see something. Oh, the bear is actually running towards me. And guess what? It's splashing water, right? And then suddenly, this is the first time I saw the claw. And so I have two things that I immediately thought about. First of all, I have to keep focusing on his eyes. But the second thing is, it would be great if I have a photo that shows both of the claws, right? And the third thing I was thinking is that if the water splash is big enough, maybe the water splash can cover up the left and right of the bears so that the distracting background will be gone, right? But would that be possible? So I don't know at that time. So I kept focusing on the bear, focusing on the bear, focusing on the bear, and I saw the splash getting bigger and bigger and said, hey, maybe look at the left side of the splash. It almost covered up the distracting background, right? But this time the bear is under the eyes is not visible. The water is blocking the eyes, so the focusing was very difficult at that time. So by then you have to kind of release the finger because otherwise the autofocus point will focus on the water and you lost the focus, right? So you have to be very careful about what I taught you before, okay? And then now you see the eyes, right? But you didn't see the claw. But now the water is starting to splash up really, really big and is starting to make the background less distracting, right? But still a little bit distracting. And then this one comes in. Okay, now the water is actually splashing even more. So the background is still distracting, but not that much. But I didn't see the claw. And now the bear is starting to come up a little bit. And you see one claw and the splash is so big that is on the right-hand side, the splash is covering the distracting background completely, right? And then this one happens. And the splash just cover up the distracting background completely. And both of the claws were visible, and then the eyes were visible, right? So if I didn't explain to you about all this, you didn't know that how critical or how lucky this shot was. And then afterwards, I cropped the claw on one side, and then the other one, this is the next one, the distracting background comes up, and the eyes is closed, and then the bear is gone, like into the water. So there's just this only one shot out of the 5,000 photos that I took that day in that 2 hours that has this incoming picture without the distracting background. And so this photo won the grand prize of Nature's Best in 2013. And so I just want to tell you that it's all about the metering mode, that you know how to set it, and then the autofocus, pre-focus on the rock or on the bear in the beginning, and then you just started to track it like that, and then you keep focusing, and then you keep bumping the focus, like you release the finger and all, doing everything that I just taught you, and then you nail every single shot. And yeah, thank you very much, Pam, for saying that. So guess what? When you look at that photo, if you look at that, there's actually a hidden triangle sign onto this photo, right? If you see it, right, this triangle. And then if you look deeper, you see there's also an inverted triangle in that. And you may say that, hey, Tin Man, so who cares about this freaking triangle, right? And ta-da, remember these names. Daisy Gilardini, who is a good friend, C.S. Ling, Nellis Wolf-Marins, Denise Ippolito, and many more. Where's Tin Man Lee? I forgot to mention my name there. So Daisy won the grand prize in, I think, 2015 of Nature's Best. C.S. Ling won the grand prize in 2010. Nellis won the grand prize last year. Denise won the bird category, or I think the art of nature 2 years ago or 3 years ago. On the penguin, Nellis won that grand prize with the gorillas. C.S. Ling has the upside down monkey, and Daisy has the polar bear. Guess what? If you look at the photos, if you Google them after the talk, you see that they all have upside down triangle in them. Crazy, right? Yes, yes, yes. It's that crazy. And not only these people, but a lot of the category winners or highly honored winners, if you look into that, this triangle is really into these photos. And I can talk for another hour about why this triangle is important, but all you need to remember is that look back into your photo, and if you see certain hints in your photo that has this kind of geometry, those photos can be priceless. Yeah, good point, Steve. Yeah, thanks for explaining. Yes, so hidden triangle, right? If I didn't tell you about that, would you be able to know that? You may not. So anyways, so just a quick recap, right? So far in this webinar, we've covered how to find the best aperture, shutter speed, ISO. We cover a lot of stuff, right? And reviewed like the mistakes, right? Like the sky background and the dark background with the white bird, how to acquire texture photos using like 5 techniques, how to reverse the process, right? Try to look back into the grandmasters, try to look back into the grand prize winners, the category winners, and what are the ingredients, right? If I told you before, you would just say that this is just like a nice polar bear, or this is just like a pretty good penguin, right? But now you know these ingredients, and if you can instill these ingredients in your photo, guess what would happen? I don't know yet, but you are welcome to try, right? And the AF tracking formula that I show you, that you can nail a lot of the shots, and it can definitely improve your keepers rate, right? And then I told you how I won that grand prize winner, and I tell you these subtle details. Everything is about subtle details. I can't remember how many people told me when they saw my grand prize bear photo, and they told me that, oh, I have so many of those photos, right? And so this is the thing about whether they know about these secret ingredients. And then now you know the golden rule, and how I got the barn owl photo just nearby, right? So you know that these methods are very powerful, that you don't need to go far to get international awards, right? Using this reverse method. So knowing what you know now, I want to ask you a few questions now, okay? So now that when you see an animal in front of you, do you feel more comfortable on like which metering mode to use now, right? Auto ISO plus 2/3, right? Now you can all answer me. And so are you happy to come to this webinar? Did you get a good laugh? Anybody remember the Wolverine? Like, I hope this Wolverine story will just keep going. Like the guy whose kidney got cut out from the Las Vegas like drunk. And like, now do you realize the advantage you have in photography now? Now that you don't need to worry about auto like the metering now, and then you after a few practice, I think you'll be much more confident about the autofocus now too. So so now you should find the advantage. And so do you really see yourself try to use this method this weekend, right? And you guys promised me. Do you see that it might help you to nail the shots? And even if you use just a tiny fraction of what I show you, will you say that our time was well spent? It's not short, right? It's like an hour and 15 minutes, right? And I think you all think that you have a better chance to take sharp photos, right? But like every year, actually, I have a as I told you, after my back pain, I started to teach a class, and I only enroll like once a year for some of the students. So I wonder if any of you would like to spend even more time together, going even deeper and further on how to make wildlife photos that are beautiful, texture, and able to move people to win awards. So here's what I know about you, right? So even even if we had 4 hours together instead of today, like an hour and 15 minutes, it's going to be very hard, almost impossible to create lasting change, to give you the full extent and benefits of all that I could give you, no matter how good anyone is, right? Even in wildlife photography, I'm pretty good, I think, but one short webinar isn't really going to go about creating the change in your life that you want and deserve. I think you need more than that. While what I've given you today was incredibly valuable, now that you guys can't wait to go out, right? You guys want to close the webinar to just go out and try that, right? Because like, oh my God, golden rule triangle and all, right? But it's really what I told you is really just frankly the tip of the iceberg. I think some of the students are in the audience actually. I told them not to come, but they still come. And if you like what I have shared with you so far, you definitely love what I've got for you next. If you said to yourself that you want to go even further, because like the golden rule and the triangle is really just one of the hundreds of the ingredients that you can add to your photos. And all these are very simple actually. And you see, before doing this webinar today, I was faced with one of two choices. The first choice is really, I could share what I've shared thus far, part ways with you, and then just hope that, hey, good luck this weekend on your own so that you can make a go of it. But there is and my second option is that I could actually take a more active role, right? Now that I've won some international awards and I've attended, I have my own solo exhibit invited in Hong Kong and all this experience, right? I think I have an active role and responsibility for your success to really help you to shorten your time to get to this path, to create a situation where our relationship could actually evolve. And if you ask some of the students here, we all become very good friends actually. We travel together sometimes, we talk about life and all. It's more like it's not like a one and done type of deal, but it's actually an ongoing thing. Like maybe after 2 months, I will get back to you and say, hey, how have you tried all 100 method that I told you about? Like, show me your photos. What is your next trip gonna be? Like, how are you gonna express yourself? How do you express your story? How do you tell your story? Like, kind of like a mutually rewarding relationship. So today I choose the second option because I mean, animals need me. It's too noble to say that, but I really care about the animals. And I also I care a lot about this kind of friendship. I don't want to just kind of like, oh, okay, every month I give a free webinar and hope that you do that. I really want to see that we all grow together. So it is really with my great pleasure to introduce you to my class, which is called the Wildlife Photography Masterclass. Maximum Emotional Impact is the name of the class. I mean, so this is actually a 6-week online masterclass that will guide you step by step. And if you guys are not interested to learn more, you are more than welcome to go. But if any of you are happy about this golden rule today, or the triangle, or some of these techniques, or the funny stories, you can spend maybe a few more minutes to listen to me about this. This is a 6-week online masterclass that will guide you step by step to create award-winning photos, because this is what I do. And I have a way to move people with the maximum visual impact. And I always summarize the method to be super easy, quick, and super enjoyable, that you can create your photos that you never thought is possible. So, so for example, I tell you 3 things about this class, just quickly. Like, I will tell you how to train your eye and find the best shot in the field and in your archive. So this is a proven method because I have been a judge too. I was invited as a Nature's Best Photography Asia judge, and I've been invited by Viewbug several times to judge their photos. So being a judge, I know exactly what a judge was looking for, because we are given thousands of photos. So what are we looking for in the award-winning shot is very different from when you're a photographer. So there is a background and foreground combo that will transform your photo instantly. And I'll teach you how to get this kind of combo. And there are 5 kinds of background that you must master. And a lot of you only know the golden background, right? But then there's actually at least 4 more that you have to master before you actually have a chance to win this big award. And I will tell you what kind of pose, eye contact, motion, surroundings, highlight, shadow that judges are looking for. And I'll tell you some of the critical mistakes that will turn your potential award winners to failures. And some of the major failures I have experienced when preparing submitting files. So this is not about photography only. It's also about when you have the photo, how do you optimize your file to send to this photo contest or send to those magazine or send to those editor so that you have the best chance that they actually pick your photo to be the cover of their calendar, to be the cover, to be the front of the Smithsonian, right? Those are hard-earned experience that you can't find in any books. So you can actually, so after just this section, in the first section, you can go directly back into your archive, and then you can find a lot of hidden gems that you can win awards without even going to a new trip because you will have a new pair of eyes. And like Robert is one of my students, he said, I understand metering, artist palettes, manual mode, where to photograph, and all this kind of thing, especially with a new eye, I'm being able to criticize my photos objectively, looking at the artistic part and much more, right? So I thank him for that. And Anne said that I can tell how a good photo from a bad photo. So this is very critical. He's developed a critical eye, so he's very critical on that. And second part is really my bread and butter, because a lot of you know that almost all of my photos that won are action wildlife photography in low light or in backlight. So I teach you everything. I don't hold anything back. I teach you my step-by-step roadmap to master the action wildlife photograph. So I'll show you the 5 deadly mistakes that people do when they capture fast action. So today I show you maybe 1 or 2, but there are actually a lot more. And you can acquire this super fast action photography much easier too, because I don't really have time to go to that, because it's just like I explained. And I tell you how to create award-winning photos even in low light. I have award-winning photos in national awards that has ISO in 5,000. For example, and it is very easy to deal with the noise if you know how to do the exposure properly and what to focus on. And so I teach you how to get texture photos, of course, and the secrets of the 5 super backgrounds, as I mentioned to you. So these 5 super backgrounds, if you can master it, I tell you how to easily get it every time you, not every time, but most of the time when you go out, even when the light is bad. And those critical thing is when you get those background, you transform your photos. And I teach you how not to see light as, oh, good light or bad light. I teach you how to see the relative luminance and to understand the dynamic range of the camera. Like today we touched a little bit about that, but there is a deep knowledge about the whole thing. I teach you how to create drama in your photo, how to use image design to create mystery and harmony so that your image will just stand out from everybody else. And I'll teach you the 4 ultimate methods that instantly evoke emotion. And so this is good. So one of the students said, I did make the top 250 in NANPA. So one of you is in audience is the NANPA ethics committee. So very small world, I can say. And then she also got an international award just very shortly after she took my class. And then she got published in Wall Street and then a Wall Street Journal, and lots of likes and comments in the photos, and even won some money award. Right. And the critical thing also, which is the third part, is I teach you how to trigger the emotion, which is the superpower thing about all this co-creation, psychology, storytelling, how to capture the soul. There is actually method. So one time I went to a class by a famous photographer, and I said, like, they teach you like how to get great photos, right? And guess what they taught? They said, you have to tell a story. And that's what he taught. And I said, like, but how, right? There's no method. He said, just be out there and tell a story. So most of the classes that I went to are very abstract in that. But for me, I don't like this kind of abstraction. I want exactly the step-by-step practical guide on how to create those photos, right? So there are lots of people saying that the emotion part is actually the most valuable part that they are not being offered by any other classes. And so this one, very happy to see that. So he said one of the photos is published in the Editor's Choice in the latest Wildlife Photography magazine. They published 5 photos in each edition. And out of the 5, 2 are the students who are taking my class. So that's really something that is super, super happy to hear. So, I mean, this is really, really important that once you master this skill, you can build on that to create your own. What I teach you in this class is not about getting award-winning photo, just award-winning photo. It's about how to connect your inner self, your personal story to express in those photos. That's why a lot of people saw my photo and said, oh, Tinman, I thought it's almost like I knew you better than talking to you, because they know my inner self, and that's what I want to teach you. So for this class, for example, what I call it is called the MEI class. It's a 6-week class, and it's something that I spent 10 years to earn from my experience winning, enabling me to win the international awards such as the Grand Prize in Nature's Best. And I got invited to a solo exhibit, 48 photos, right? And some of them are 6 feet tall photos too. And my photos got published frequently. And in addition to that, I took a lot of classes for masters. For example, chess, $8,000. I actually joined more than 10 tours, and I spent so many days in the field testing my technique. So I spent more than $100,000 to get those kind of experience, right? And back in the days, I mean, I tried to search everywhere about whether I can find a class that teach about visual impact, how to tell a story in wildlife photography. I couldn't find it, and I would have paid any money to learn that, but I couldn't. So I want to give back to provide such a class. And you know, we spent $10,000 for a 600 millimeter lens, like $3,000 for a camera, but we never really think about some long-lasting technique that we can use forever. And once you master those techniques, you can almost instantly grab the attention of the people instead of people leaving 10 likes and forget about your photos, right? So if I say that this class is $2,500 compared to a $10,000 lens or $100,000 that I spent on workshops to learn about those. Wouldn't you say that it is not too much, really? But of course, I wouldn't charge that much money. And actually, for me, I have sold prints, single print that is $3,000 or $2,000, and quite a lot of them. And a lot of the time I got published, and if I got a magazine cover, I got paid about $800. And if I got a publication in a magazine, I got paid $500. So I got, actually, over the years, I didn't even approach the people. People approached me to buy photos from me. Like these photos that you saw here, each one I have sold more than $2,000 each. And so, and then you will say that some of you actually know some famous photographers. They offer weekend outings, right? Weekend workshops to photograph birds on a beach or some weekend technical conference. And they usually charge over $1,500. So if my class is a 6 weeks class and I gave you everything that I have, and if I charge $1,500, I think it kind of makes sense, right? It's not too much to ask for with this kind that you can actually win, have the best chance to win international awards and all. But actually, I'm not going to charge you $1,500 because I've decided to reward those who act immediately, because those are the type of people I love to do business with. So if you sign up within the next 24 hours, because I'm going to enroll this class and I'm going to start teaching starting this Sunday, and I want to kind of hand-holding you to teach this class, really, to really give everything to you for that. And so instead of $1,500, which is truly already a good price, I want to give you the full access to everything that make up this program called the MEI, Maximum Emotional Impact Masterclass, for just $997. And you can go to the link below, which is https://tinman.mykajabi.com/MEI, and then you can check it out. And there's a countdown clock there, and you can see that the countdown has already started. And you have two kinds of payment option. One is a one-time $997. Another one is a 6 installment of $197. So this is really not the end. So when you get to sign up, you have a lot of bonus, right? So bonus number one is, so you may say that, hey, Tin Man, I don't have that much time, 6 weeks to finish your class. I do want to take it, but I want instant gratification, right? So because I don't want to let you wait for 6 weeks before you really have all the benefits of that. So wouldn't it be wonderful if I give you a checklist, like 20, 30, 50 things, ingredients where you can quickly step into the world where it has proven results, like this golden background, triangle, and all these things. I have a list of everything that is ready, that I have studied all the past winners and their works extensively to come up with this list of numerous unexpected ingredients that I think nobody have actually come up with such a list, because I'm crazy. And I just love to have an open mind to look into the painters and talk to all kinds of photographers, portrait photographers and all this. And that's how I collected, and I studied the last 20 years of BBC, last 10 years of Nature's Best. And then I just look at the photos every day, spend hours and hours looking at them. I find it a lot of joy. And because of that, somehow I created this crazy list. And it's so much more than the golden rule and triangle. And you'll be laughing after you see what all these ingredients are. And so I narrow it down to all these key ingredients. And if you, and based on my experience as both a contest judge and also based on as a contest winners multiple times with published photos and exhibits. So you get this bonus free of charge when you sign up for this class. And this is not the end, of course. So this is my cheat sheet for myself too. When I try to submit to a photo, I just go through the list. I said, do I have this ingredient? Do I have that ingredient? And usually, and most of the time when I have the majority of these ingredients, the photos, just like this last year's winners of the Fox photo, it has most of the ingredients that I mentioned. And it won the wildlife category without surprise. So it's that crazy. So it has all the succinct directives of what ingredients of your photos must have and all these things. And once you reference to it, you actually almost exactly know your chance to win an award, which is kind of unfortunate because everything is almost black and white. It's like magic that you know it. So some of my students has already been published in National Geographic, Your Shot, NANPA, Wall Street Journal, Petapixel, and international awards and all. I just want to give you a quick show of those. So this is bonus number 1, right? And then there's the bonus number 2. Besides the video class that I give you once a week, which I go over all these crazy techniques and stuff, I include 4 group calls. So when you sign up, in addition to getting all the contest checklists, I will also call the group so that we all are in a conference call and see if you have any questions. Like, do you have any questions for week 1 and week 2? And do you have any contests you want to submit? Do you have any photos that you have shared with people and you didn't get the proper feedback? Like, and then I'll show you why and I'll discuss with you, go over it, like based on your style, like how can you improve on that and all. So this is like invaluable, I think, because back then, I would dream to have a photographer who had gone through this process to teach me what I missed, right? So this is very important to you. And I'll share all these techniques with you. And you also will have access to all the previous group calls. So you can listen to what people have in the other group calls as well. So, and nothing like personal attention to guide you through the mastery, because we all need people to be held accountable. And so, for example, I'll share with you my experience of printing 48 photos and how do I get to the cover of Smithsonian calendar, like what is the process of it? Like how do people contact you when you are gonna win an award, right? All these things nobody talk about. I'll tell you how the method of how do you make sure that printing at 6 feet is okay, like you get the perfect quality. So once you have this interactive resource, you can ask any questions you want. So we have this long-lasting mentorship relationship that you can always ask me questions. So Melissa said, I found the course worth every penny. I learned so much and will continue to put on the practice. I have nothing but praise. So thank you very much for that. And this is another comment on that. So this is bonus number 2. So bonus number 3 is that you have a lifetime access to the private Facebook group. So when you sign up for the link below, you can have lifetime access to a Facebook group, which consists of all the old members. And some of the old members have won international awards. And some of them started new and then they are also getting published. So they are very willing to share their own experience, their own learning curve. And they will give very constructive feedback in addition to me dropping by from time to time in the group too. So it's a very strong community that I value very much. And only by having a like-minded group of people, like me when I began, I have a group of like-minded people who share ideas about photography all the time, we critique all the time. That's how you can improve, because you just cannot improve on your own because we are too subjective on our own art. So also I'll drop by from time to time to talk to you together with those groups. So you learn all about this publication and all. So Nadine said, a like-minded community and resources, great teacher with a huge volume of knowledge to teach. I can't wait to go out tomorrow morning. I know you guys can't wait to go out as well, right? So this is bonus number 3. So bonus number 4, I saved the best for last, right? So you guys know that I've won a lot of awards photographing bears, and I have published my mountain goats. I have published work on door sheep, and I've lots of published work and awards with foxes and all these things, right? So what I give in this bonus is that you receive a PDF and also videos of how I plan for any of those trips, right? So I plan a trip. So a lot of those award winners, like for example, the grizzly bear pouncing, that was actually the first time I ever saw a grizzly bear, but I could get a grand prize because of that. It's because it's not about how many times you see a bear. It's about your imagination, your creativity, and your skills. And if you have all this ready, and when the opportunity comes, you can strike it. Like, just think about if I didn't have those autofocus method and I didn't know how to expose the photo, then even if the bear was running towards me, I would just miss the shot, and I didn't see what like this triangle, you know, and pick that photo to send it to Smithsonian. And this one may still be sitting as an overexposed photo in my recycle bin, right? And now it has been on the entrance of the Smithsonian. And just think about all your good shots that you didn't even know you have, all the potential of your photos that you have. It's just so dangerous that you may miss those opportunities if you don't train your eyes and you didn't go into this group, go into this class to learn about it. Does that mean you spend what? Probably tens of thousands of dollars on your cameras. And this is just $997 for a lifetime of opportunities and creativity and skills to learn that. So anyways, back to this bonus. So I'll teach you how to create winning photos in the first trip that you go. How do you pack? How do you book hotels? What kind of cameras you bring? How do you plan a shot in those places, right? For example, I only been to Falkland Islands one time, but one photo I got into the cover of Wild Planet Photo Magazine, and they did an interview with me with 8 photos from Falkland Islands. I mean, this is just the first trip. I've never seen penguins in my whole life, but time and again, I proved myself that whenever I see a photo, see an animal, you just give me maybe 1 day or 2 to observe them, and I'll think about so many new ideas. And I talk about all these ideas in my photos. So my approach is very different than most people in that they spend years to look for an animal, to wait for an animal for the shot. But for me, it's very proactive, as you can see it here. So wildlife photographers have very special requirements. So you can't just buy a guide to Hawaii or buy a guide to Yellowstone and think that you can just join other iPhone photographers to get award-winning shots. It's very different. The preparation is completely different, and it's crazy too. Not to mention that I'm not crazy, but so I create this guide just for you so that you have an insight. When you go to those places, you immediately know what kind of photos you can take. And I think one of the buyers who purchased this, and he went to Falkland Islands, and I think he got multiple awards just from one trip. Even the funny thing is, I warned them not to do something because it can be dangerous. And he, instead of following my advice, he actually went all the way to did that. But I'm glad that he actually got wonderful photos. I'm so proud of him too. So, I mean, once you have this guy, not only can you get great photos in those places, but you learn my principles. So the next time you go to a new place, the same kind of thought process will be instilled into you. So I know that, oh, if Tin Man goes to this place, this is what he's gonna do, and I'm gonna do it better than him, right? So this is what I hope you can do. And so every time when you spend your hard-earned money and your vacation, just like me before, $10,000 for a trip and 10 days, 12 days, and you only have like 1 second, like how do you maximize that 1 second to turn something that is irrelevant into something that won the grand prize of Nature's Best? So that's possible. I want to let you know that this is possible. So these are the 4 bonuses that is going to be included in you. And I actually have another bonus, which is the introduction to photography, which is everything, right? Where do you buy a camera? Where do you buy a computer? Why do I choose this backpack? Why do I choose this tripod? And all this basic stuff. Like if you're completely new to wildlife photography, this video will actually help you to get right onto that. Otherwise, this class is actually quite advanced. But don't worry about that because that introduction will get you right onto the spot. So anyways, sign up now, 6-week video masterclass, ultimate checklist for contest submission, group calls, private Facebook group, photography guys with videos, and it's just $997. And you have 2 kinds of payments too. So, and oh, this is crazy too. I forgot to mention that. So when you sign up, you think that $997 is a lot of money. I don't know if it really works, even though I really like that golden rule and the triangle, right? So know that whether it is 25 minutes from now or 20 days from now, if you ain't happy, I ain't happy. So for any reason or for no reason whatsoever, if you want your money back, you can get it and I have no bad feeling because I know this class is good. So, and then I just really, I would be happy, and I would love to return your money if you're not happy, because I want all my students to be completely happy. And so I only want to keep your money if you're happy. So all you have to do is just go to email tinman@tinmanly.com and tell me, I want a refund. You don't even need to give me a reason, and I'll instantly respond to you and give your money, full money back. And my response time is usually about 61 minutes and 24/7, 365. So I won't keep your money. And you can only make such a guarantee when you're confident, right? So I'm super confident, right? Like today, when you hear about my crazy golden rule and triangle, I know you agree that those actually make sense. And there are actually a lot of deep psychological reason behind it, and visual cortex and human brain. And I will actually dig deep into it to explain why in my class. And I know some of you may already have some ideas too. And so I would love to have you to discuss with me. Maybe we can find something that humans might not even know before, right? So I'm very confident about this class. So I won't have bad feeling if you want the money back 29 minutes or 29 days, right? So just be very confident to sign up. And I think you owe yourself an opportunity to give it a try, because what if this class really changed your life, right? And you have no risk, really. 29 days, you say, hey, Tinman, this class is too advanced to me, or I just hate you, I don't like it. Or you don't need to give an experience. I mean, we sometimes may even need money for something and say, hey, I may not want to take your class. It's okay, but what if this class can transform your photo? What if this is exactly what you need in your photography to change your photo forever, right? And I see that some of my students have already won international awards, and I see how happy they are. And it's just one of the most meaningful things I can do, which is to help them build their confidence, because the talent is already in them. What I'm doing is really to unleash that power to you for something that you didn't see, right? Now that you see the golden thing, now that you look back into the nature's best photography, Steve is gonna hate me. I mean, Steve is the co-founder. Tinman, you told people the secret of it. But really, like the more you look into it, the more you find it. And it's very, very fun. It's a really, very good opportunity. So I want to be a friend with you too forever. And if you join it, we're gonna be friends. We're gonna hold hands with each other, and then we're gonna explore, and we're going to master the craft together. So it's really good. So you're getting exactly what you need to transform your photography to win awards and move people. And there's just no risk, really no risk at all. So I don't know why you're hesitating, really. So sign up now again. So this is what you have. So at this point, I see that some of you have already signed up. So I thank you so much for that. I'm super happy to have you, because our class is going to begin this coming Sunday. And right before the summer, right? We'll finish in 6 weeks. So just perfectly ready for your Alaska trip and your Colorado trip to see the mountain goats. And you get all the secrets of how to photograph the mountain goats in my guide, right? And if you are spending $3,000 to go to Colorado, why don't spend $997 to do that, so that you can get award-winning photos there instead of getting high altitude sickness and you didn't get crap, and you get a role, a human-built role in the background. You didn't know why, right? I'm just teasing you, but if you see the guy, you know why. But some of you are still here though, and I can tell you that you're getting ready to sign up, but you have a question you need answer just before making that decision. So just let's address some of those questions here, if you allow me. So the first thing is the investment, right? So it's about the investment is that I know, I get it. This is ain't chump change. I mean, $997 is a lot of money. It's a serious investment for a serious person, because we have a serious offer. This is gonna change your photography completely. It's gonna change your life in a way, because knowing these techniques, my life has changed. I still remember the day when I stood in front of the Smithsonian, seeing hundreds and hundreds of people taking selfies in the in the entrance with this spare photo in their background. I mean, the kids were looking up in the photo. This feeling is just crazy, and I want you to have this kind of feeling. So, because so if the price tag is your primary concern, is that, dude, this is too expensive, man. Let's be clear with one another, because a lot of people who say they can't afford it are actually not telling the truth. Because, for example, you told me that I would buy it if only I could afford it. I mean, you need to listen carefully. What I have here is that you can get started for just $997, which is, I mean, the cost is not cheap, but what if I say that, hey, suddenly I got sick tomorrow and I have to pay $997 for a doctor to check me out? Will you pay for that money instantly? So it's not really about that money that you don't have. It's about the priority. And for example, if there is a new lens that is as light as a kit lens, but it's 600 f4, and it's like $11,000, you not think about twice, and then you say, whatever, I'll pay by credit card. I'll buy the lens for $11,000. It's just because that you haven't really clarified what you can afford. So it's not really about what you can afford or not, but it's about whether you want to change your photography completely and whether you're committed. So let's get rid of the myth of whether you can and can't afford it, right? Because we all know that we all can afford $997. So the real question is, are you willing to do what it takes to make this investment or not? So as you sit here today, you have three options really. Option one is to do nothing. And as Aristotle put it best, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing, right? Doing nothing just doesn't leave you with the problem. It makes the problem worse the longer you do nothing. So that's not it. You can do something else, but why? You know, and I know what is right in front of you is the thing to do. Because, I mean, look at the thing that I just talked to you, and this is just the tip of an iceberg. So just, you can't imagine how crazy this discovery is. And so that's option number three, just do it. Yes, the money may be tight. Yes, there may be a stretch, like $997. I mean, this is like half of my rent and stuff like that, right? I understand. But yes, you're going to have to go out of your comfort zone a little bit, right? I mean, I've never spent that much money for a class or something like that. But this is something that I really tailor-built for people who just need this push to transform their photography completely, to go from like a decent photographer or a new photographer or someone who won an award or two to someone who consistently produces photos that change people's life, right? So where do you think all the growth will come from? That's why you need to quit lying to me and more importantly to yourself and just do what needs to be done, right? You shouldn't wait for that because I mean, in a few years, you may still need that class, but think about that you can spend 3 years before you consider it next time. But these 3 years, 4 years, you can keep producing award-winning photos that move people's heart, right? Just think about that. So you can just go to the link on below, and you can just quit thinking about that and just get down to business. Let's do it, right? So another thing is the time, right? So I know a lot of you are busy, right? And they said, you said like, I have a job, I have a family, I just got retired. I don't really have too much time to sit down and take this class, right? So now for those of you who haven't signed up yet, and from a financial point of view, you feel comfortable knowing that, okay, $997 is no big deal. I mean, I spent $15,000 to go to see the polar bears last year or whatever. I know you. So $15,000 and you can even spend $900 to change your photography. So knowing you can make that investment without a sweat, but your question is really the question, like it ain't about the money, it's about the time. See, money can be replenished, but a minute gone is gone forever. So you want to know if, in addition to the monetary investment, what's required for your time, right? Here's what I know about you. The first thing I know is that you can make time for things that are worthwhile. In fact, you are here right now, right? You just spent, what, 2 hours of your life listening to this random guy talking about something that is completely crazy, yet you think that it makes total sense and you can't wait to go out to try this method to transform your photos, right? So I know you do have some time, but do you have enough time, you asked? Well, time is really the only thing that is given out equally to each and everyone in the world. Did you know that there's nothing else so evenly and fairly distributed as time? It's not how much time you have, it's what you do with the time that you have that matters. So here's what I want you to do. So if I can show you how to do this and save time, actually have more free time than you currently do, would you sign up? So the question is like this. So now think about 5 things that you do consistently to try to get a tech-sharp photos that may win awards and move people. Like what do you do nowadays when you go to take photo? Do you go to a nest or do you go to a den and just wait there and set up your tripod and sit on a chair? Or do you just book a trip, $10,000 and then just follow the guy and say, hey, there's this leopard, oh, this is the tiger, just shoot it. And then you come back and then you show people like, I get the best gear, I get the best guy. And how come nobody care about my photos, right? So list 5 things that you usually do every year. Look back into that consistently to try to improve your photography. So next, I want you to order them from the most effective to the least effective. For example, sitting in the same den again and again, or spending $15,000 and you didn't improve your photo. Maybe these are the least effective things that you find yourself doing, which you spend maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks, like flying into small planes, right? It's worrying about all the small, like the gear that you can bring, and then it's like handling minus 50 degree and all. But then you came back with the photos that didn't move people, right? Like what the heck is going on, right? So just choose the number 5, the least efficient thing. And do you see it? For example, do you go to a local spot again and again, you use the same method in which your photos will suddenly be transformed? Now I want you to take a big red marker and cross that out. Don't do that anymore. And in its place, just put MEI from now on. So every time you want to go to the local nest, say that, okay, I'm going to do it right now. And I want to cut this action. And then I know that if I spend, maybe if I wake up 15 minutes every day earlier or sleep 15 minutes later every day, and I spend maybe 4 days a week, 3 days a week, I can finish one module of Tin Man's class per week. And in 6 weeks, with just this little bit of investment, my photography can be transformed completely. And so this is what my, like, not the guarantee, of course, I don't know how your commitment and all, but this is really the best chance that you can have. So try to go into this tinman.mykajabi.com/MEI and check it out and just put in your name and all. You really have no risk, right? Just try it for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and I'm always happy because I'm just super confident, just like my photography. There's just 2 things I'm confident about. One is teaching, one is photography, right? So, so now that money is not a matter, time, you know, you can find it out, the habits. So what do I mean by habits? So, so the habits, you know, habit is very difficult to change, right? And how many people have tried to change their style of how you eat and how you tie your shoelaces, right? So that's why you have been struggling with getting sharp pictures, because you have been trying your best attempts to solve it on your own, and you have certain bad habits that keep on happening. Like for example, when I told you that front focusing instead of using the thumb, you may get offended too, because they said all these experts told me to use back focusing, and all these experts told me to use manual. I mean, who are you, Tin Man Lee? I don't want to follow you, right? To do that. So this is the habit that is very difficult to change. And you really need to have someone side by side with you to really have a chance to change that habit. So we are being honest with each other. This is one webinar right now that is highly unlikely to forge new, more empowering habit in your life that transform your photo, really. Even though the 2 hours is wonderful, you love that method, but because this is just the tip of an iceberg, right? You change it, but the majority of the part, you haven't changed your inside. Like, you don't know your personal story. That is crazy. This is some crazy discovery that I find out that is just gonna change your life completely, but I'm not gonna tell too much. So even if you make progress based on what we discussed today, chances are it will be temporary. Willpower usually doesn't take you very far. And your old habits will creep back in and say, well, auto ISO is not that fun. I failed it once. I better switch back to manual, right? Because you need someone, you need me and the community to tell you that, hey, you're doing really well, but this is something you shouldn't do. This is something you should do. You know, this kind of thing. So otherwise, you end up right where you started. That's why I'm not going to let that happen. If you're serious about true everlasting changes in your habit, so you can start to take photos that move people, you're going to need repeated exposure in an environment where everything right down to the last detail has been designed to hardwire success in your life. That's what we have done with MEI. I did it strategically, almost based on the human perception, human cortex, so that you can learn it and you can get it and you can follow the techniques step by step to change your photography completely. And that's why I'm so passionate about getting you started today, down a new path, a better path for transforming your wildlife photography. So are you ready for that? I mean, I try my best, right? I try my best to explain to you that, but so try to go into that link and just begin, right? Meet with me this Sunday for the first class and you see what it is. So, and then another thing is that information alone is not enough. What I mean by that is, I want you to think about your first day in high school, right? It's the first class and you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to learn. Your teacher walks in, drops in the textbook in your life and says, read this. I'll be back at the end of the semester to give you your finals. This happens, and I think a lot of the people who are like me, who had skipped classes before, and you didn't go to the class, you didn't do your homework, and you try to finish reading everything the night before the exam, right? You know how painful it is. And you know that even if you finally get an A, right? It's just a lucky A. You didn't learn anything. You didn't really understand anything in that. And it's a waste of your time and you're lying to yourself. So what happened is that for example, if this happens to your next class and every classes that follow, if that were the cause, none of you would be on the webinar today because you'll be still struggling to graduate in high school, right? So information is powerful, but on its own, like in a book, it's not gonna be enough. You need more than just information. You need tools, you need community, you need accountability, you need coaching, you need me alongside you who have won grand prize, all these kind of things for the next 6 weeks if you're going to transform your wildlife photography. And a lot of the students have gone through it and they are very successful now. And you meet them when you join the class and they will become your good partners and friends. Once you make that first step by signing up at this link, you are truly making a difference in your life. So finally, the pricing decision. So listen, I get it. I mean, this is not cheap because good things are never cheap and cheap things are never good, right? And you do remember me, right? So when deciding on creating MEI, I was faced with one of the two choices. The first choice was to create a solution that catered to as many people as the market as possible. Like I can make a class saying that just tell your story, just be one with nature, right? I mean, capture the soul of the animal and you win awards, right? I can do that too. And people would love it too, actually. But you are familiar with this kind of approach, right? You pay what, $100 or $90 and you didn't learn crap, right? You go to some of those classes and people just talk about their legacy. Just talk about, oh, look at how great I got this picture. This was the first picture ever and I got this award, blah, 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 blah. But they are not there to help you to learn. They are just gurus and they want to talk about their experience, right? And we are some of the people who begin on our own. We met a lot of obstacles on our own, and so we want to fight them. We are not the natural people. We are the people who actually want to take one picture at a time to change the world. So the key is once I went to a class and the instructor said, we can figure out how to give you the bare minimum you need to succeed in an attempt to control costs and make the investment as easy as possible on your part. But the second option we had was to not start at price, but focus on value. If we wanted to put every advantage we could in your favor to make sure your success was inevitable, I want your success to be life-changing, to err on the side of giving you so much value that it would be impossible for anything other than stunning images to show up in your life in 6 weeks. Can you believe what I just said? God, you still need to go to some trips though to see animals, you take it. But your eyes will be transformed. I guarantee you, within 2 or 3 weeks, you see things very differently. You see things that I say, I hate you, Tin Man. Now that I can unsee what I see before. Like, what would that look like? The problem with this approach is that it immediately turns off most of the markets. Only those who are serious, who care about price and not about results will be away. However, can you see what type of advantage that gives us? We can truly engineer a one-of-a-kind solution. This kind of class, I don't think you have seen anywhere that you have this kind of class that only teach you how to evoke emotion, how to move people, how to transform photos, how to change the world, how to win awards, how to win international awards and all. That you can't get anywhere else from anyone else because I started with the question of what would it take to succeed? Because my only goal is to help as many people to succeed so that they can help the animals. I mean, this is a really pure, maybe stupid idea, but this is what I want. So I want to devote all my resources. I really hold nothing back. My students will tell you later that everything I know, you know, and every photos I take, you know how I took it after you take the class. And I want to devote all these resources I have to the answers and then figure out how to get it to you in the most economical way possible. So you get all this simple to understand story and step-by-step techniques. Everything is practical. Everything is step-by-step hand-holding you so that you know exactly what to do instead of like be one with nature, right? This offer isn't for hobbyists or the person who only has a slight desire to improve. Remember that. I'm not here to help you to improve your photography. I'm here to transform your photography. And this is for the serious individual who won't let a price tag get in the way of freedom from creating the best wildlife photos. And I guarantee you, after you were able to see and after you learn to master these techniques, you will be a free man or woman. You will be so free in your creativity that once you see an opportunity, you can connect with your inner self to create something that nobody has seen before. So yes, what we have today costs a little more, but in return, I can give you a lot more. And isn't that what's most important? Once you go through MEI at this link, you will see the difference for yourself. And for this time, and how this time will be different for you to finally get relief from missing shots and start to create tech sharp shots every time, perfect exposure, and you can move people, you can have all these ingredients that nobody have seen before. And people will see your photo and say, hey, I didn't know what magic you have but for your photos, but I just couldn't look away. And you know that it's because I have included 15 ingredients in my photos, but you will never know it. So this is really something that I want to share with you. And I hope that you think about it, and so the price will go up within 24 hours. So if you act fast enough, it's going to be $997, sorry for the typo. However, if you wait, then it will be $1,997 when the offer expires in 24 hours. And the bonus will go away too. So after that 24 hours, if you sign up for the class, not only will it be $1,997, but the 4 group course will not be there, because right now it's all live course. Once every 2 weeks that I'll talk to you. But if you're gonna take the class, you will not have those group calls, which is super valuable. And I only offer this class once a year this year, and soon the offer will go offline, so you will not be even able to take this class after a while. So successful people act quickly and with purpose, and I'm rewarding those who act immediately on this offer. So I hope to see you in this class. Give it a try, enroll now, and I will send you all the information. And so what you get is that after the welcoming email, you will have access to this website. So it's a very simple website. It's almost like YouTube with your password. So you just go there, and this is a welcome video, and you just click play. And then you can play in high definition video in the computer, or you can see here, you can download the video into your hard drive, so that, for example, if you're going to Africa and you don't have any internet, you can download everything and then just watch it in your downtime and say, oh, Tin Man reminded me to use these ingredients in Africa. I gotta use it, right? So you can download the video, and you can download the PDF. So I have all the PowerPoint in PDF, and sometimes I have documents in PDF, cheat sheet on PDF where you can refer to. So lots and lots of all these ingredients. And afterwards, after each group call, the video will also be recorded, and it will be put into the class materials too. So you'll get all this access. And you also have the link to our Facebook group, and everybody will welcome you there. And so yeah, I look forward to seeing you there, and thank you so much. What time is it now? It's oh my God, it's almost 3 hours. And yeah, so check it out, the class, right? It's, from what I said, 29 minutes to 29 days, you can money back guarantee, and just think about it, like golden rule and the triangle. If these two can already change your life, just think about multiply it for 100 times, how much it's gonna impact the rest of your life if you invest right now. So thank you very much, and see if you have any questions and stuff. So let me see. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. PDF link. Yes. So the link for the PDF for the free for the metering stuff. So it's right here. Sorry about that. So here, tinmanly.com/metering, and check it out. I haven't added everything into it for what I talk about today, but you actually get a replay of the video pretty soon, and you can watch it and have fun for another 3 hours, and that's so. I'm really hoping the PDF is coming soon. Okay. Thank you for staying for the long time. Sorry, it's really fun to be with you guys to talk about all this. Dive a little bit deeper. So yeah, definitely dig a little bit deeper, and let me know if you have any questions. And yeah, so the PDF is at tinmanly.com/metering, and email will be sent to you with the link as well for all the people who have signed it up. So so let me see. Receive. Top 20. Wow, congratulations, Josh. Oh my God, thank you so much for saying that. I gotta capture the screen, Josh, for saying that. Thank you for the study. I highly recommend people to sign up for this incredible opportunity. Thank you, thank you. And so thank you, Rich, for the techniques. And yes, Sandra, I will send all the information in an email so that you guys can know the download link and also the link for the class so that you can also think about it. And thank you, Kathy, for your continued support in all the classes. I really am super thankful for being a good friend with you, and I always admire your ethics. So very good lady. Yeah, really appreciate that. So yes, Sandra, I'm glad that you know. So everything is actually connected, all these methods, and I love to find these connections. And then once you understand it, then it becomes very easy to remember. And when you go out, you can apply it super easily. So okay, so this webinar, Sue, will be available probably for another 24 hours. So Santosh, yeah, remove the max ISO unless you want to have my ping of getting a super noisy picture of a puma. God, tough, man. I don't know. I still don't know why people use max ISO. So thank you, Richard and Pam. Going to practice on the backyard birds. So yeah, God, practice the backyard birds with the golden background, Pam, and let me know how it goes. And you may be surprised. And don't forget to thank me when you get the golden background. And oh, thank you, Williams. I have so much fun, man. It's just good to be with you guys. And thank you, Lisa. And we're glad that you enjoyed the information. Thank you, Barbara. Oh my, your webinar was your best yet. I'm glad to hear that. Colleen, what? You have Wolverine experiences? God, where do you live? Can I count? Okay, Seth, very useful. Thank you. Paul, thank you for your time. So Stephen, yeah, definitely consider switching it. So it's not an and all. Like so having the experience of using full manual is actually very critical. It's like if you have driven a car in manual, when you switch to automatic, you know exactly which gear you are in. So once you try Auto ISO, you will actually be way ahead of everybody else who started with Auto ISO. And Auto ISO, so like really frankly, in terms of photography, you know that really the best shot is always the shot that are least expected. So during those times, you have the least time to prepare. So every 0.1 second counts. And if the auto ISO can save you like 0.5 seconds, then using manual and then you have to spot meter and get the thing with the light changes, you get 5 more shots in that 0.5 seconds. And one of those shots may be the grand prize winner, or maybe it is changing the world, or maybe it's something that can save the life of the animals, right? So just think about it. Like, and every trip, right, really, we are just waiting for that 1 second to happen. And if you can save 0.5 seconds from that 1 second, this is what I'm trying to teach you about, right? We spend $10,000, we spend 10 days, and we are all for that 1 second. And if you don't have techniques to shorten the delay of starting to photograph the animals, then this is one of the worst thing that a wildlife photographer can do, right? You don't focus on the 15 minutes on something else for setting up the camera. So thank you, Mary. Excellent. Thanks for your kind words. Karen, great story. Thank you. Karen, absolutely. Yes, thank you. Nancy, glad to have you, and thank you for your support. Thank you all. Seems like, well, and you're a great photographer. I actually admire your photo a lot, and I'm so glad you came by. We need to talk. I love a lot of your photos, and so glad that you are considering the single point. So all the mad bird in flight photographers use single point actually. So I guess it's almost like riding bicycle with the assistant wheels. Like once you master it, then you use the single point. And I see those crazy people nailing the shot in the middle every single time, full frame and stuff. So it's good. But for me, like in some of the birds in flight, I'll switch to surrounding point because I'm not that good. I kind of stumble, like I am bad on that. so it looks like I'm very good in action, but I'm very slow. I'm famous for being a sloth. So yeah, so I'm like a sloth who take action wildlife photos, right? So Pam, you're right. Like one photo worth $10,000, definitely. That photo changes my life. Like when I was, so the key thing is when I was able to invite my parents from Hong Kong to come all the way to Washington, D.C. to watch me getting the awards and seeing all these people looking at the photo is worth everything, right? The time with the family, right? The loved ones, share that passion with the loved ones. That's really what these techniques can enable us to do. So thank you, Jamie, for that, and Danny, thank you for your support for the class, and look forward to seeing more your photos. Your photos are great. I mean, I can't believe like your crazy improvement, by the way. And yeah, chin strap. Is it chin strap, Penguin? I don't think it's chin strap because it's like this rock hopper with super long eyelash. You know, it's crazy looking. So yes. So Ron, you're right in a way for that +2 1/3 if you use spot metering on the eyes. But for a lot of the things, sometimes even, so during the bright time, but that time is already almost sunset time. So during the sunset time, the light is not saturated. So the light is super saturated. So the auto ISO almost always work. So the spot meter is really for the condition when it's the birds in flight, or when the light is very contrasty, that you some part of it is not the same as the other part. So otherwise, auto ISO +2/3 is really the key. And some of you are staying, so let me give you another secret now that you have the patience, right? Is that I actually, when you're using Nikon DA50 or any of the cameras that has the Sony sensor, and what I mean by Sony sensor is I'm going to talk about it in my upcoming YouTube channel about why I switched from Canon to Nikon. But Nikon camera has super high dynamic range, so I always set auto ISO +1, and the picture is noise free, ultra good in the shadow details, and it's just good, and I didn't blow off any of the highlights. So I use Octo +1, but this is for people who are willing and dare. So if you haven't mastered it, I still advise you to just use +2/3 and just check your histogram to really understand what your capability is in terms of your camera and all. But +1 never fails me. Okay, thank you, Karen, to try the method, and should thank you. And question, how is it with 1.4 teleconverter? Still fast, noticeable? I haven't actually used the 1.4 on the 400 2.8. Maybe I'll use it next time, because see, the thing is I have the 500 PF 5.6, which is super light. So when it's in the 500 range, I would just use that lens, even though it lost one stop of light. And the thing is that you have to buy the 400 2.8N. So when you use that lens, that 2.8 is just so magical that you don't want to use any other f-stop, because it just let in so much light. The AF is so fast, and everything is just so dreamy in that 2.8. And you basically get probably 5 minutes more before sunrise and after sunset than everybody when the animals are most active, that you can get noiseless photos. When everybody else's photo is at ISO 16,000, you are still at 1600 ISO when you are using a 2.8 lens. It's that crazy. So that, I haven't used the 1.4. So shoot me an email later and I may let you know. So yeah, Deborah. And so I think I got all the questions, and wow, you guys didn't ask any tough questions. I thought like people would say, you're an asshole, hey man, things like that. So anyways, I'm so glad to have you all, and wow, I actually talked for almost 3 hours, and I still haven't had lunch or breakfast. I only ate like 4 bananas, and I didn't sleep last night. God, life is tough, but life is fun. I'm so happy to be able to share this passion with you. So I hope that for those of you who are still staying, definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel or my newsletter. And I'm super, super thankful that you guys stay so long to listen to me rambling, complaining, venting, bitching, but I truly, I really am grateful for your stay. So I'll let you off. I'll let you guys go. I know some of you may be in international time and it's super late, And but the key is if you have any questions about the class, or even if you're not a photographer yet, and if you want to take advantage of this, because I think it helps landscape photographers too, it helps painters too. It's really a principle that is life-changing about how you see the world. And once you learn how to see it, you appreciate the beauty of it. And in fact, one more thing I want to tell you guys before I go. I think wildlife photographers, the main, what is wildlife photography is really to find beauty in shitty condition. Like whenever you are in the worst situation, toughest condition, worst light, worst animal sightings, frustration, 9 days waiting, no animals, and you're filled with mud and all, and your camera stopped working and the light was harsh and the animal wasn't in the good light and all, yet you were able to find one opening and one angle that the animal is just so beautiful, expressing with their beautiful light and plumage, and then you nail that shot. And in the whole world, there's just this one angle where you were standing. There's this one focal length that you are using, and there's just this one shutter speed that you are using, that you were able to capture that beauty from this chaotic, ugly world. That's what wildlife photography is about. And this is what really what I'm trying to convey. After that 7-8 years, I have been doing a lot of soul searching for my life as well, a lot of changes and loved ones passing and lots of failures and stuff. That's what I reflected on my photography. And somehow when I apply these techniques in photography, then people were able to connect with me. And I was able to convey the deepest inner story with them through this method, which is pretty amazing. So, so definitely, if you have any questions about the class and all, shoot me an email, or if you want to talk about anything, let me know too. So, anyways, oh, Umberto, thanks for coming too. Thanks for your support, constant support as well. So yes, thank you very much all, and check it out, tinman.mykajabi.com/MEI, and I look forward to seeing you in the class. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, I have a Q&A here. Is the course live or PDF? So Douglas asked me about that. So the class is a recorded video, but all the group calls once every 2 weeks are live that you can ask. And actually, I keep on updating the class for whatever things I added to it. So you actually will have access to previous materials too. And I keep on adding new materials for the class materials that you can download and all. And the group calls, sometimes I go over time as long as I answer all the questions as well. So do let me know if you have any other questions, tinman@tinmanny.com, and I look forward to seeing you, and I hope you are able to jump into this opportunity to transform your photos. Okay, all right, okay, see you guys.